Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Half an hour later, he emerged and headed to the dining room. It's all your favorites, mostly low fat and low oil, Megumi said with satisfaction, glancing at her husband. Her son had finally committed to losing weight and stuck with it. His parents had already eaten, so Yoru didn't hold back. He grabbed a piece of wagyu beef and stuffed it into his mouth. While chewing, he looked at his parents. His dad was fat and ugly. How did he land such a gorgeous wife? Drink some water. Megumi handed him a 500 milliliters bottle of sugar-free cola, worried he might choke. This bottle's tiny, Yoru muttered, running his hand from the cap to the base in confusion. A few more days passed at home. That evening, Yoru packed his bags and prepared to return to his apartment. He turned down his dad's offer to drive. He wanted to enjoy the breeze. He walked and reflected on his time in the hospital. Eventually arriving at the station, he took the train home. It was around 9 p.m. when Yoru finally returned to his apartment, luggage in tow. As he pushed open the door, the air inside, stale from disuse, rushed out. It's been a while. He sighed, changing into his indoor slippers at the entryway. The kind-hearted landlady had waived half a month's rent upon hearing he was hospitalized. Carrying his bags inside, he switched on the lights. The place was clean. San-san must have been staying at Gabriel's. Wonder if San-san still remembers me as its owner? Yoru chuckled as he checked the apartment. The utilities had been shut off during his stay. Most of the food in the fridge had spoiled, except for some condiments. After spending 10 minutes packing up the trash, he flopped onto his bed and dazed out. Then he got up and went to knock on Gabriel's door. Gabriel, it's me. I'm back. Knock knock knock. Oh, welcome back. The door is not locked. Her voice came quickly from inside. Yoru gently pushed open the door and stepped inside. It was his first time entering Gabriel's apartment. The layout was identical to his own. It didn't look like she'd changed much. Reaching the living room, he spotted San-san's litter box and food dish. San-san? Yoru called out, trying to find where the cat had gone. Meow. The next second, a round, chubby black cat darted out from under the sofa and rushed straight toward Yoru. Looks like I pampered you enough. You still remember me. Smart cat. Yoru picked up San-san, carefully checked it from head to tail, and gently patted its round little head. Everything seemed fine. But Gabriel was nowhere to be seen. Gabriel, I'm coming in. Yoru called toward the inside as he walked in holding San-san. Gabriel's place was still quite tidy. Of course, Yoru didn't know it was Vignette who had come over yesterday to help clean. Come in. Gabriel responded nonchalantly. Playing games? As he reached the door, Yoru cautiously poked his head in after hearing some sounds. Gabriel's room was very plain and simple. She herself was lying mostly on the bed, legs dangling off the edge, her delicate little feet swaying in the air, eyes glued to the computer screen as she played her game. Yoru walked inside. To be honest, Gabriel's appearance was rather revealing now. She was only wearing a loose nightshirt and didn't seem to care at all. Evening. Suddenly, Gabriel turned her head and yawned. Yoru was almost startled by the sight. In his memory, Gabriel had always been neat, polite, and very attentive to etiquette. Now, her hair was messy and sticking up like a bird's nest, crumbs from snacks clung to the corners of her mouth, and the dark circles under her eyes were heavy. Gabriel, are you okay? It took Yoru a few seconds to recover. He almost thought Gabriel had been possessed. I'm fine. Come help me look at my laptop. It charges way too slowly. Gabriel waved him over indifferently. Yoru walked over, crouched down, glanced at her again, and reminded her, Gabriel, maybe put on some pants. You're kind of exposed. Even though part of him wanted to look, she was still a friend. Ugh. Gabriel just pointed at the laptop and shook her head. Yoru checked and found that the charging problem was due to a low-power adapter. After fixing it, he took San-san and started moving the cat supplies back home. He also reminded Gabriel not to get too addicted to gaming. Apparently, he might have been the indirect cause of all this. While he was moving the supplies, Nanami returned and greeted Yoru. Working that late? By now, Yoru knew Nanami had come from Osaka to chase her dreams. Yeah. Meow. Nanami chuckled shyly, crouched down, and patted San-san on the head. Grr. Yoru's stomach growled at the worst possible time. He hadn't eaten much dinner, walked for a long time, and digested what little he did eat quickly. Yoru, you didn't have dinner? Nanami looked up and asked. No. The food in my fridge went bad. What about you? Yoru gestured with his eyes. If she hadn't eaten either, maybe they could go out together. I'm short on time. Need to practice for a voice acting script. If you don't mind, I could cook you some noodles? Nanami tilted her head and asked again. A veggie salad works too. You're dieting, right? Avoiding carbs? Sure, sorry to bother you. And so, Yoru followed Nanami back to her apartment. A fat shut-in visiting two beautiful girls' apartments in one night. No wonder it would lead to misunderstanding. Nanami's place hadn't changed much. The only addition was a second-hand mini fridge. Yoru sat on a couch sipping water as sounds of cooking came from the kitchen. Aoyama-san really is a kind, traditional, pure girl. But her boyfriend? Yoru still didn't know the truth about Sorata. After eating a Beauty's specially made salad with a dash of salt, Yoru watched Nanami practice her voice acting lines for a bit, then left. The next day, Yoru was back to a normal routine. He tried to exercise a bit. His stamina had dropped from lying in bed too long. Right before he left, Gabriel messaged that she had taken the day off. So Yoru had to head to school alone. Is she really sick or just faking it? He thought about it for a moment, then pushed it out of his mind. The more important matter. One he'd been anticipating for a long time. Sawamura. Yoru kept a calm expression, but for a brief moment, a devilish look flickered across his face like a demon from hell. As soon as he boarded the train car, a few sharp-eyed Chechen girls spotted him and began whispering. Wait, isn't that the fat creep? Yeah, that's him. I heard he died already. He must have gone insane. Can he even be cured? Back in school again? The semester's almost over. Disgusting. Their voices were very quiet. Yoru couldn't hear them. But he used his mind-reading ability. After a few minutes, his head began to feel dizzy, and he stopped. Mind-reading has its limits. It consumes mental energy and takes time to recover. But that much was enough. One-on-one, he could read someone's thoughts for about 10 minutes before dizziness kicked in. After arriving at his stop, Yoru picked up his backpack and walked to a nearby vending machine to buy breakfast. There was no food left at home. Guess I'll just get some milk. I can pick up some bread on the way through the shopping street. Yoru hesitated before inserting coins. The machine clunked, and out came a bottle of milk. His bulky body struggled to squat down, and his pudgy hands had a hard time reaching into the gap to retrieve the bottle. You? Just as he stood up, a familiar voice sounded behind him. Kasumajoka Utaha? Before he could even turn around, his brain had already reacted. Wearing a white hairband, a stunning, curvaceous girl stood behind him, a coin between her fingers. I thought you'd finally come to your senses and dropped out. Utaha looked Yoru up and down. His hair covered his eyes and ears. Her lips curled with disdain. I'm alive and well. Yoru wasn't the same as before. He no longer panicked or wanted to flee just because a girl was talking to him. Humphrey. Utaha narrowed her crimson eyes and snorted softly. Too bad. That time reversal ability only worked once. If it could be used again, I wouldn't hesitate. Yoru sighed inwardly and ignored her. His silent demeanor and flat expression made Utaha pause for a second. The snide remarks she had planned got stuck in her throat. The stockings and panties. I didn't steal them. Whether you believe it or not. Yoru inserted the straw into the milk and sipped calmly. Like nothing happened. Utaha watched, inexplicably irritated. She immediately struck at his sore spot. Really? A disgusting, foot fetish, pervert pig. You saw a pair of nice feet and shoved them in your... bringing something that grows on the field drip. You. Yoru nearly choked on the milk. Passers-by at the station turned to look in curiosity. A disgusting fat guy chatting with a beautiful girl in black stockings. Hey. Utaha sneered, suddenly remembering the stocking incident. And the stocking hasn't stopped. Since the start of the semester. Sigh. My bag is full of pepper spray, stun guns, and spring-loaded knives. It's so heavy. And I have to stay on high alert every single day. Utaha thought this as she walked along. Being stalked? With his mind reading active, Yoru caught most of what she was thinking and vaguely remembered a glasses-wearing boy who once confronted him. He even picked up a private art book from an illustrator. But Utaha's level of caution and self-defense was genuinely scary. After finishing the milk, he crumpled the carton and left. As he passed a bakery on the shopping street, Yoru stepped inside and bought a few slices of whole wheat nut toast, munching as he walked out. In front of the bakery were two benches by the wall, set out for resting customers. Yumeko, Yue, and Ebina were sitting together. Yoru walked right past them, distracted by his thoughts, and didn't even notice them. In the end, it was Yue who called out to him. Kitakami-kun. Yue waved awkwardly, glancing nervously at Yumeko and Hina beside her. As Yue's best friends, of course they knew about Yoru's real situation. But since it had been days since they'd last seen him, they were caught off guard. Yuagahama-san. Yoru was equally surprised, nodding at her. His eyes landed on Yumeko. You're out of the hospital? Feeling better? Yue asked politely. Totally fine now. Thanks. Yoru looked away. That's when Yue noticed that something was strange about how Yoru looked at Yumeko. Yumeko's expression was also off. Yue, being good at reading people and familiar with both Yumeko and Yoru, sensed something was off. After Yoru walked away, Yue gathered her courage and cautiously asked, Yumeko. Was it just me, or was Kitakami-kun looking at you a bit differently? Ebina also turned to look. Oh, it's nothing. Just a small misunderstanding. Yumeko replied, with no need to hide it. Of course, she left out the details. She couldn't very well admit she confronted him over a misunderstanding involving Yue, accidentally fell, got exposed, and ended up pinned against an alley wall by her wrist and forced to apologize. Yumeko grumbled inwardly. As Yoru approached the school gates, his heart stirred as he looked at the school building in the distance. He tried to suppress his emotions, but he needed a release. At this time, Ayuri should be here too, right? Yoru shook his head and headed into the school. In the next classroom over, Ayuri rested her cheek on one hand, yawning as she stared out the window. Tears welled up. She closed her eyes and rubbed them. When she opened them again, she saw Yoru standing just outside the window, his expression indifferent. In the next second, that dreadful fat loser from her nightmares appeared in her clear eyes. Her heart skipped a beat, nearly crashing. Yoru still hadn't cut his hair. Ayuri's face turned pale, bloodless. She entered a strange mental state. All she could hear was her own heartbeat. Everything else faded, like she'd slipped into a 2D world. Yoru frowned slightly. His mind reading was still active. It seemed Ayuri had been scared senseless. He couldn't sense anything from her except fear and shock. No thoughts to read. No data to extract. I'll try again this afternoon. Without saying a word, Yoru entered the classroom through the back door. From being falsely accused on the school trip, hated by everyone, demanded to drop out, with even Hiratsuka-sensei stepping in, and Shinomiya Kaguya stirring things up. To being cursed daily, having his shoe locker and desk graffitied and filled with trash. To being lied to by Ayuri in the rain, having trouble breathing, freezing with a fever for hours in a filthy bathroom corner. To being treated with contempt, insulted, scrubbed down, rushed to the hospital, surgery. And now. Today. When he entered the classroom, many students seemed surprised by his sudden return. Yoru knew what kind of rumors had spread about him around school. When the bell for morning self-study rang, Yoru opened his book and scratched his head in frustration. He hadn't been to class for over a month. He hadn't learned a thing. So frustrating. And then there was student council's Chika Fujiwara. Yoru remembered clearly how she helped him. Running around for him in the hospital, staying at his side. Without her, he probably would have collapsed waiting for help and an ambulance. There really are good people in the student council. How should I thank Fujiwara-san? Yoru bit his pen, troubled again. Chika's status was sky high. Her family background was so powerful you couldn't find many like it in all of Japan. If Kaguya was money, then Fujiwara was the peak of power. With power, who needs money? A simple thank you wouldn't be enough. Yoru pondered, head aching. The whole day, his mood stayed low. First, he couldn't understand a word the teachers were saying. The lessons might as well have been in another language. Second, he was impatient for the end of the day. As soon as the dismissal bell rang, Yoru grabbed his bag and rushed downstairs. Good. Ayuri hadn't left yet. After changing shoes at the first floor lockers, Yoru waited outside the school building. Sawamura Ayuri. Most likely. It's you. Yoru narrowed his eyes. His expression gave nothing away, but inside, he was tense and furious. A few moments later, Ayuri, now wearing indoor shoes, walked out alone from the building. Yoru's sudden appearance this morning had really scared her. She had never been so frightened in her life. Then again, she felt a bit relieved. At least Yoru hadn't turned out like the rumors said. schizophrenic or suicidal. She didn't know the details, but since he was okay, her faint guilt had quietly faded. I'll just give him more money to compensate. That should be fine, right? Ariri thought with relief. Completely unaware of just how deeply her actions had hurt Yoru. Money. It couldn't compensate for the rage and lost sanity of someone who still held the power of time reversal. Ariri lowered her pretty head. Her shining twin tails swayed with each step. Sawamura-san, can we talk? Yoru walked up, keeping a bit of distance to avoid startling her. He needed to activate his ability. Mind reading. Although even without reading her thoughts, his instincts and all the clues pointed to one thing: the culprit was none other than the arrogant half-British bitch, Sawamura Spencer Ariri. Always bossing people around, secretly looking down on him, calling him a gross fat creep, rolling her eyes at him. I'll give you your umbrella and money back another day. Just don't come near me. Ariri looked at him warily, speaking fast while backing away. That previous sudden confrontation had already made her more alert. This wariness. Yoru could sense it clearly. Sawamura-san, relax. We're still on school grounds. I only want to get back my umbrella and money. Yoru said with a slight frown, keeping his tone calm. Seeing that Yoru really just wanted to talk, Ariri immediately took a step back. Don't come any closer. In her mind, she was already cursing him as a gross pervert. Sawamura-san. Yoru was on the verge of snapping. His tone took on a faint edge. Then let's talk somewhere else. Afraid Yoru would do something reckless, Ariri agreed nervously. She quickly led him to a flower-bed path behind the school building. She wasn't too worried about Yoru doing anything there. Other students taking out trash for cleaning duty would pass by. Alright, what do you want? Ariri crossed her arms, clearly annoyed. She had no idea what Yoru was about to say. You were the one who stole Kasumijoka Utaha's stockings and panties and pinned it on me. Weren't you? A cold, faint smile hung on Yoru's lips as he spoke calmly. He had expected to be anxious or agitated. But now, right at the critical moment, he was surprisingly composed. His mind clear and calm. Maybe this was just the effect of pain reaching its peak and flipping over. Ha! Ariri's blue eyes shrank, her rosy lips parted in shock, revealing neat white teeth. Such a perfect mouth. Too bad the words that came out of it were vile. He wondered how it would feel to kiss her. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Ariri quickly regained composure, one hand slipping behind her back to pinch her waist hard. Her feet, clad in elegant black mid-calf socks, dug into her shoe soles. She was doing all she could to distract herself, trying hard not to let anything slip. Honestly, Ariri was good at acting. Her expressions and timing fooled Yoru yet again. How? How does he know? No way. How could anyone possibly suspect me? This has to be fake. Thanks to his mind reading, Yoru heard it all. Her emotional reactions, her inner thoughts. Yoru's cold smile deepened. What nonsense are you spewing? You disgusting fatty. Stay away from me or I'll tell a teacher. Are you trying to make me take the fall for your own crime, to clear your name? You're so gross, just die already. Ariri acted completely innocent, like a passerby caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. She shouted at Yoru in disbelief and disgust, pretending to be the victim. She even gave him that signature look of haughty disdain, then turned as if to walk away, unaffected. Yoru was genuinely surprised. He hadn't expected a rich, prideful girl like Ariri to do something like this out of revenge against Kasumijoka Utaha. Was it some kind of deep grudge? A love rivalry? He stepped forward abruptly, blocking her path. Ariri couldn't stop in time and nearly stumbled. You got into a fight with Kasumijoka Utaha and tried to get back at her. So, late at night, you snuck in and stole her stockings and underwear, didn't you? Yoru's tone and expression were calm and unreadable. Which made it even harder for Ariri to guess what he was really thinking. Mom. Dad. What do I do? You're back in England. Who can help me now? Ariri tried to stay calm, but her fear was bubbling up violently. Fear. Regret. Panic. Helplessness. All alone at home? Yoru murmured under his breath. Go ahead and keep living in your delusions. Just stay away from me. Ariri was on the brink of collapse inside, but her performance was flawless, worthy of an Oscar. Do you have proof? Ridiculous. She changed direction and tried to leave again. She was certain Yoru had no evidence and couldn't do anything to her. I do. Someone saw you. I just found her recently. The flashlight on your phone was pretty bright, Sawamura-san. Yoru didn't try to stop her this time. He just said it softly to her back. His emotionless voice drifted to Ariri on the wind. The leaves rustled gently, and sunlight filtered through the gaps. Ariri bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. Her footsteps faltered. Out of Yoru's sight, With no one around, her legs suddenly gave out and she dropped to her knees, hands covering her face. Realizing she wasn't safe there, she bolted into a nearby bathroom, slammed the door shut, and sat on the toilet seat, clutching her mouth, unable to hold it in anymore. Yes. She had done it. Back then, she had invited Tomoya to her birthday, only for Utaha to show up halfway, steal the spotlight, and mock her with her usual venom. Airi had been furious. Then, just days later during the school trip, she got into another intense argument with Utaha under a tree. Airi was so upset she couldn't sleep for days, obsessed with getting revenge and humiliating Utaha. One night, drowsy and overwhelmed, she acted on impulse. And committed the crime. Since then, she had been a nervous wreck. Scared, regretful, full of guilt and dread. Until Yoru got caught and became the scapegoat. Rumors were already flying that Yoru had a leg fetish and was into Utaha. Back then, Airi convinced herself that Yoru, that disgusting fatty, probably wasn't a good person anyway. She kept rationalizing, hypnotizing herself, and didn't dare confess to Utaha. Then the rumors about Yoru attempting suicide, having a mental breakdown, jumping off buildings. Those made her panic. She even followed him once, sneaking onto the rooftop, but was in such a rush to leave she forgot to close the door. After seeing that Yoru was still alive and fine, she slowly tried to put it all behind her and forget. Oh. Airi sat in the bathroom, sobbing into her hands, tears soaking her face, the skin around her eyes rubbed raw and painful. Her small body trembled uncontrollably, like someone suffering from Parkinson's. She didn't know what to do. Her parents weren't even home. Yoru wasn't going to let Airi off the hook. As for evidence, he didn't need it. He'd just make her confess. And if not, maybe he'd use a red-hot iron rod on her, like in that popular manga redo of Healer. Leaving the back of the school building, Yoru wasn't in a hurry. He went straight to find Hiratsuka Shizuka. He wanted to ask her for the school trip housing list, to find out where Airi lived. But she wasn't in. I'll try again tomorrow. For now, I'll go to the service club. Yoru remained unnervingly calm. Cold, calculating. At the service club, voices drifted from inside. Yukino and Yui were talking. Yoru knocked lightly, then opened the door and stepped in. There you are. Good afternoon, Kitakami-kun. Yui, being in the same class, had known since morning that Yoru was back. Good afternoon. Yukino added. She had already heard from Yui. Afternoon. Yoru nodded. So, have you been keeping up with your studies? Yukino got straight to the point. Yukinon. Yui pouted playfully. She wanted to ask Yoru about what happened between him and Yumiko, maybe clear up the misunderstanding. I did. Since I was hospitalized, I had extra time. I reviewed all the first-year materials. This semester's content, though. Well. Yoru scratched his head. No need to worry. Let's start with this practice test. And here. Take this home and look it over, compare it with your textbooks. Yukino opened her bag and pulled out a test paper and a thick notebook. She slid them over to Yoru with a blank expression. It was another familiar handout, this time printed. The notebook was filled with notes from all subjects, dated to match Yoru's time in the hospital. Yukino had clearly been preparing these for him the whole time. Her own knowledge was far beyond the curriculum. She had no need for simple notes. But this notebook was full of detailed explanations. This must have taken so much effort. And time. Yui flipped through it, stunned. I had plenty of time. Yukino turned her head away, ignoring the gratitude in Yoru's eyes. She wasn't lying. Yoru felt deeply thankful, but briefly considered using his mind reading on Yukino. He immediately stopped himself and felt ashamed. You can't just use that ability recklessly. After the club meeting ended, the three left together, just like old times. Halfway, Yui split off to find Yumiko and the others. Yoru and Yukino entered the station, getting on the same train car. There were no seats this time, and even handrails were scarce. They each grabbed one, standing close together, side by side. It felt a little awkward. The train started to move, rocking gently. How's your cat doing? Yukino couldn't take the silence anymore and blurted something out. Of course she'd bring up her cat. Classic cat lover. Oh. She's doing fine. Yoru opened his mouth to answer. The air suddenly fell silent. He started to feel awkward. Fortunately, Yukino was only riding for one stop. Soon, the next stop arrived. Passengers poured out, freeing up space. Yukino and Yoru each managed to grab a seat. Huh? Weren't you getting off at the next stop? Yoru asked. I need to buy something. Yukino replied calmly. Same here. Yoru nodded. Half an hour later. They arrived? Yoru and Yukino stood up at the same time, Perfectly synchronized. Even the way they turned their heads in surprise was identical. "You're heading to the mall?" Yoru asked. "Looks like you are too." Yukino sighed. Yoru and Yukino got off together and headed to the nearby mall. One in front, one behind. It was a bit awkward. Soon after, they separated. Yukino had no idea what she wanted to buy. Yoru went to check the prices of compact HD camcorders. He also looked at new phones, especially those with long battery life, and a few USB drives. The new ones were pricey. After thinking it over, Yoru turned back to look for second-hand items. After all, they worked just as well. In Akihabara, he bought a used Sony camcorder that also worked as a camera, a durable second-hand phone, a few USB drives, and an anonymous data SIM card that could only be used to go online or register apps. It couldn't make calls. With everything prepared, Yoru took a deep breath before heading home. The next day at school, Gabriel used the excuse of being sick and stayed home. Yoru was, once again, alone. He took the train and headed to school. As he walked to class, he glanced at Ariri's seat. To his surprise, Ariri was here today and hadn't avoided him. She was slumped over her desk, head buried in her arms. Last night, Ariri cried all night after getting home. She had no idea what to do. Her only plan was to use money. A lot of it. To make peace with Yoru and offer it as compensation. Who doesn't like money, right? Poor Ariri still hadn't realized that Yoru wouldn't let her off that easily. The damage she caused couldn't be fixed with money. And Yoru didn't need it. Back in the classroom, Yoru sat quietly. The aura he gave off made Yumiko feel strangely nervous. After morning reading period ended, Yoru went straight to the faculty office building and found Hiratsuka Shizuka. "Hiratsuka-sensei, I have a request." Yoru got straight to the point. "Speak." Hiratsuka responded curtly. "I'd like you to get me the student list from the last school trip. With detailed profiles." Yoru said, taking a deep breath. He was worried Hiratsuka would refuse. And she'd have good reason to. He wouldn't be able to argue. But this was probably his best shot at getting Ariri's home address. Fast, convenient, and risk-free. "What do you want it for?" Hiratsuka frowned in surprise. To see who might be the culprit. Yoru couldn't just tell her it was Ariri. He needed proof. "You." Hiratsuka was stunned for a second. Her first thought was that this was impossible. Find the culprit just by looking at student profiles? Ridiculous. Totally unrealistic. Then she remembered Yoru had only recently returned to school from the hospital. If she rejected him? If he got emotional? It could be bad. "All right. Come find me after school to get it." Hiratsuka nodded. Yoru kept his expression in check and thanked her before leaving. That file had to include Ariri's address. He was going to hit back hard. Phew. Outside, Yoru exhaled and quickly headed downstairs. Just then, Garasu came up from below, and they met on the stairs. "Garasu-sensei." Yoru greeted her with feigned politeness. He still needed to keep up appearances. He hadn't forgotten what Garasu had done to him. Garasu gave a cold nod, barely acknowledging him. If it had been another student, especially one with good grades, this IC teacher would have been a lot gentler. Back in class, Yoru lay on his desk scrolling through news, quietly waiting for the afternoon. At lunch break, he went out and came back with a bottle of black coffee. Ariri saw Yoru walk past and wanted to catch up to him, but fear held her back. Until the end of the school day, she still hadn't returned the umbrella or the money she promised. Feeling anxious and hopeful, Yoru went to the faculty office and found Hiratsuka. "Here's what you wanted. Look at it here." "You can't take it," Hiratsuka said, tossing the file onto the desk. She still didn't understand how looking at profiles could help identify a culprit. It was basically meaningless, right? Might as well be a placebo to make Yoru feel better. Russell. Yoru carefully opened the file, tense. If there wasn't an address listed, this would be a bust. Flipping a random page. His own? Hey. Yoru couldn't help but chuckle when he saw the photo of his formerly fat self. Hiratsuka glanced over, then stepped out to smoke. The addresses were there. All of them. Detailed. Yoru felt no fear now. He quickly flipped to Ariri's page and memorized her address while Hiratsuka was gone. He took out his phone, snapped a photo, then nervously tucked it away. He pretended to read the file a bit longer, dragging it out for over 10 minutes before leaving. "Got any leads?" Hiratsuka asked casually. "No. Just grasping at straws." Yoru shook his head, said goodbye, and quickly left. He didn't stop by the service club. He grabbed his bag and headed straight for the station. That day, Ariri hadn't gone to the art club either. Or home. After school, she went to Azumi Seigiri to pour her heart out and seek comfort. This address. Yoru rode a train, then caught a cab. He finally reached the area near Ariri's house. It was still a bit far. But once he arrived, he was shocked. It was a luxury villa district, sparsely populated, with beautiful landscaping. The pedestrian paths were wide, and even the streetlights looked high-end. The road lanes were broader than most highways and immaculately clean. The occasional car driving by was worth tens of millions of yen. And those were the lower-end ones. No wonder she's a rich girl. Yoru sneered, then turned a corner and arrived at a steep slope. These luxury homes were spread far apart, leaving ample private space. Tall walls surrounded the villas, with an inner garden area. Even the iron gate at the front had a paved road stretching several dozen meters to it. Luxurious. Extravagant. Words barely did it justice. Soon, Yoru located Ariri's house. But didn't get close. There were cameras mounted on the gate. He stepped back a few paces and muttered to himself for a while before finally leaving. Nice scenery. Clean. Quiet. This is the perfect time of night to take a cute little dog out for a walk. It was Friday. Just over a week remained before finals. The atmosphere at Shuchin had shifted. Yoru had prepared everything and drafted several plans. After school, he was planning to lie in wait for Ariri. To his surprise, she came to him directly. "Hey, I've got the money ready." Today, Ariri was wearing thick white over-knee socks that squeezed her thighs a bit, making her look slightly chubby. "It's for the umbrella I borrowed. And also, I didn't steal any of Kasamijoka Utaha's stockings or panties, so don't go around saying that. I've added interest, and I'm willing to pay extra. Name your price." She adamantly denied being the culprit but was willing to pay to settle things. If what she'd done in a moment of impulse was made public, she'd be finished. Even Aki would likely abandon her for Kasamijoka Utaha. Ariri had no choice but to pin the blame on Yoru. "Is that so? I want 10 million. Can you afford that?" Yoru replied flatly. Ariri had basically walked into his trap. "I can." She didn't hesitate for even a second and nodded firmly. What? Yoru had only tossed out that number casually. 10 million yen. That was a fortune for a high school student. Just because your family's rich doesn't mean you can freely spend that kind of money. Especially not for something like this. Once I give it to you, you're to stay far away from me like nothing ever happened. Ariri said, seeing Yoru's surprised expression and secretly sighing in relief. Yoru could hear the implied offer of a truce in her words. Forever? Like nothing happened? That's basically an indirect confession. So you're admitting you were the real culprit? Yoru activated his mind-reading ability. What are you even talking about? Gross. That money is for the trouble I caused you in the rain. You'd better take it and transfer schools. Ariri crossed her arms proudly, glaring at him with disdain. Of course, she wouldn't admit it. As a gen artist, she knew all about traps like this. What if he was recording? But with that much money, this whole thing should go away, right? And if not, she could add more. Judging by his reaction, he was clearly tempted. If he was tempted, she could work with that. Ariri waited for Yoru's response, thinking this over. Unaware that every single one of her thoughts was being read. Looks like you still don't realize just how much damage you've done to me. Yoru sniffed, muttering to himself. Fine. You think I love money? Then I'll let you lower your guard. Alright. But I want it right now. Yoru deliberately showed a hint of eagerness. Seeing this, Ariri's heart finally began to settle. She had no idea he could read minds, so she relaxed a little more. That's a lot of money. I need time to prepare it. I'll give it to you next week. Ariri replied. 10 million was a huge sum, but she could manage it. She was a rich heiress and a well-known gen artist. She didn't spend extravagantly. Her biggest expenses were clothes, shoes, skincare, and makeup. Naturally, she had saved up a good amount. Where is the money? Cash or transfer? Yoru patted his bag, which was packed with tools. It's in my card. The card's at home. Ariri answered nervously, sweating from the scented heat rising off her skin. I want it now. Once I get the money, we're done. Yoru's tone carried a faint urgency. Just as expected. He really is into money. Perfect. Yoru read her mind again and sensed she had relaxed even more. I want the card now. I'm going home with you to get it. He made his demand. But the truth was, he didn't actually care about the card. He just wanted to get Ariri alone in a private place. Originally, he'd gone through all that trouble. Asking Hiratsuka for the trip roster, checking the address, scouting the area. Just to go confront Ariri head-on and get revenge. But now she was handing him the opportunity. No way. Absolutely not. Seeing his current expression, Ariri quickly shook her head. He was like the figure from her nightmares. She was scared. There was no way. I just want to get the money quickly. I think you're stalling. You already lied to me once, didn't you? Yoru again hinted at his obsession with money. No. Airi trembled, overwhelmed by anxiety. She was mentally fragile at the moment. If you don't give it to me now, I'm dragging you to the principal's office. Ever heard of a lie detector? Yoru threatened her coldly. Airi, whose mental defenses were in shambles, immediately panicked. That was just who she was. She'd abandoned Aki in the past because of her weak psyche. Drawing Jinchai had her living in fear of being exposed. She had no one to confide in besides her little sister Izumi Sagiori. At school, she always put on an act. At home, she let go. Lately, her mental health had been deteriorating. Physical problems were sometimes easier to treat than these. Fine, I'll have him wait at the gate. That works, right? Suddenly, Airi changed her mind. Fine. She agreed. With mind reading, Yoru understood everything. Then let's hurry. I can't wait to see my money. He rubbed his fingers together like a greedy miser. Humphrey. Don't get too close. You're not allowed in my house. Airi snorted, clenching her fists as she turned away. Her palms and back were soaked in cold sweat from fear and nerves. Move it. Yoru urged her. Airi took the lead, walking ahead as they left Shuchen. She wore brown leather loafers made more for looks than comfort. No matter how high-end, they didn't breathe. With all the sweating and thick white stockings, her feet were bound to stink inside those shoes, especially mixed with the leather scent. On the way to Airi's home, Yoru kept his distance, occasionally reading her mind and pretending to be money-hungry. Airi felt a bit more at ease. She didn't know he could read thoughts. And in that time, the progress on her gold treasure chest increased significantly. Yoru didn't just want revenge. He wanted to fully open that golden treasure chest too. When they reached her luxurious villa. This is your house? You live here? Yoru exaggerated his expression, though part of it was genuine. You already know what kind of family I'm from. Don't try to fool me and go back on your word once you get the money. My mom's home. Don't get impatient. I'll bring out the card, and you just wait quietly. They were almost home when Airi lied, trying to intimidate Yoru. Your parents aren't home. They've returned to England since the new Prime Minister took office, right? Yoru thought, feeling the anger he'd been suppressing start to boil over. Looks like he really does love money. Airi let out a breath of relief as she led Yoru to her house gate. The camera at the entrance wasn't connected to any network. That didn't matter to Yoru. But it was still better if her parents didn't find out. Airi took out a key, unlocked the large gate, and glanced at Yoru with caution. You're not allowed to come in. We agreed on that. She said nervously as she slipped through the gate. I won't enter the house, okay? But now, I want 15 million. Yoru suddenly said with a grin. You jerk, gross, go die. Airi was stunned but didn't get truly angry. In fact, she looked more at ease. So long as he's obsessed with money, she thought, she had something to work with. Yoru successfully entered the outer gate. Inside the garden, trees were planted near the second-floor balcony. If he were thinner, he could probably climb one. Keep your distance. My mom is probably cleaning inside. Don't make a sound, or she'll hear us. Airi said, keeping at least 3 meters between them, her guard still up. Besides, Yoru wouldn't dare do anything to her. Right? He was so timid at school. He couldn't even defend himself when Kazumijouka Utaha misunderstood him. The yard was big, with a central path and gardens on both sides, carrying a faint floral scent. Yoru took a deep breath as the house drew nearer, keeping his eyes fixed on the front door. It had a smart lock. All right, stay right there. Airi said, stopping about 5 meters away. She turned back and warned Yoru again, then called out loudly, Okesan, I'm home. Had Airi calmed down, she might have noticed something was off. But if people could always stay calm, so many conflicts wouldn't happen. Okay. Yoru replied. The moment was ripe. All the resentment that had built up within him surged out. Tokyo's temperature. Hot enough to burn. Airi turned around and had barely taken a few steps toward the door when Yoru, still heavy-set but moving fast, rushed forward. He collided with her from behind. The impact sent Airi flying and crashing onto the ground. Ah! That hurts. Their size difference was obvious. Yoru's bulk was enough to overpower her with ease. Airi instinctively cried out in pain. Everything had happened so fast that her mind couldn't catch up. Airi Sawamura. Yoru's face twisted into something unrecognizable as he walked toward her. Shivering, Airi tried to turn herself over. You! Why you freak? Before she could finish, Yoru reached out and grabbed one of her signature twin tails. The same ones admired by so many boys at school. He yanked it harshly. Her scalp felt like it was tearing. She was forced upright. Without hesitation, Yoru struck her stomach with his fist. Ugh! Ayuri spat out a mouthful of air, her eyes bulging, her body curling up, her mouth agape. Ayuri Sawamura, do you have any idea what you did to me? Yoru shouted furiously. Dragging her by her twin tail like a rag doll, he hauled her toward the door. He used her hand to unlock the fingerprint scanner. The door clicked open. Without looking back, Yoru tossed her into the entryway. He locked the door behind him. Chapter 66, Wow! Your foyer is as big as my entire bedroom apartment. No wonder you could offer 10 million. And add 5 more without hesitation. Yoru's family wasn't wealthy. Seeing this level of luxury stirred his lingering sense of inferiority. Ayuri hit the tile floor with a dull thud. Her small frame slammed against the hard surface. Oh! She rolled slightly on the floor, groaning as pain surged from all over her body. She tried to shift her focus from the ache. Yoru, meanwhile, took off his shoes and casually tossed them aside. His time in the hospital had given him a bit of a cleanliness habit. You bastard! What are you doing? Are you insane? Ayuri finally began to regain some strength. Leaning on the wall, she stood and glared at Yoru. He'd attacked her. Forced his way into her house. Her fingers trembled as she held onto the wall. She couldn't stand upright. She was terrified. A stranger had invaded her home. He wouldn't really do something to her. Would he? Okesan. Okesan. Ayuri cried out, panicked, hoping her mother would calm down. It was instinct. Call for help when there's danger. Go ahead, shout louder. Yoru said, face twisted, but voice disturbingly calm. He stood by the door, watching her with unsettling clarity. You better get out. My mom's upstairs. Maybe sleeping. If she comes down, you're dead meat, freak. Then maybe I should drag you upstairs to meet her? Yoru's twisted grin deepened. Ayuri collapsed to the floor with a soft thud. She leaned against the wall, kicking her legs, trying to crawl back. But there was nowhere left to go. Ayuri Sawamura, that lie was pretty weak. Is your mom even home? Yoru smiled and reached behind to gently close the door. The room dimmed. What? What are you going to do? With the door. Her only hope of escape. Shut. Ayuri's panic reached a peak. The emotional shock hit her almost as hard as the physical blow. What am I going to do? I came here for revenge. Yoru had a twisted grin on his face as he dropped his bag, stretching out a large hand and slowly approaching Ayuri. Get away from me. Go to hell. I swear I'll beat you to death, you idiot. Cornered in desperation, Ayuri didn't know where the sudden strength or courage came from. She sprang up from the floor and, still wearing the shoes over her sweaty white stockings from a whole day, kicked directly at Yoru. It was a reaction driven by pure panic and fury. Only after her foot was in motion did Ayuri realize. She was no match for him. The only way she'd survive was to run. Relying on her agile frame, she twisted her body and made a desperate dash toward the room. If she could just make it into her room and lock the door, she'd be safe. And then Yoru would be the one in trouble. Yoru, already prepared for everything, had even come up with several backup plans and lines to say. But now, with Ayuri walking right into his hands, he didn't need any of them. Did she really think he hadn't considered the possibility she'd try to run? Ayuri barely took a few steps and hadn't even made it to the entrance hall when Yoru caught up from behind. He grabbed the collar of her elite Shochin school uniform and yanked her back. This wasn't some flimsy knockoff. This was a top-tier uniform from a prestigious private school, built to last. Had she been wearing something cheap, it probably would have torn by now. How much did Ayuri wish right then that her uniform had been cheaply made? This hallway is too spacious sometimes, don't you think, Ayuri Spencer Sawamura? Yoru shifted his stance slightly, mocking her with a sneer. With just a bit of force, he pulled Ayuri back toward him effortlessly. To Ayuri, though, it felt like an unstoppable strength she couldn't fight against. Yoru was determined to crush her spirit. To make her feel every bit of the pain he'd endured, and in the end, make her admit her wrongs and help clear his name. But no. Let me go. When my parents come home, you're finished. My father is a diplomat at the British Embassy. You better back off if you know what's good for you. Ayuri thrashed and kicked, stubbornly refusing to admit any guilt. Get back here. With a fierce tug, Yoru pulled the petite, doll-like girl back against his broad, sweaty frame. He grabbed one of her twin tails and pulled hard. Ah! The scalp is full of nerves and blood vessels. Pulling hair is excruciating. Her long, naturally blonde twin tails, something Ayuri had always been proud of, became a source of pain. Inside the extravagant European-style mansion, her agonized screams echoed through the hall. It hurt. More than she could bear. We're just getting started, Ayuri Sawamura. Yoru grinned cruelly, then paused as he was about to throw her to the floor. This villa was spotless and luxurious. He didn't want to make a mess. Instead, he held Ayuri's weakened body and reached for her brown leather loafers. Careful not to dirty his hands, he pinched the heels between two fingers and gave them a little shake until they slipped off. He did the same with the other shoe. Trying to run, huh? He loosened his grip and extended a finger toward her exposed sole, giving it a teasing tickle. Ah ha ha. Stop. It tickles. It tickles too much. Ah. He he he. NGH. Please, stop. I can't take it. Ah ha ha ha. Ayuri screamed and laughed uncontrollably. Tears and snot ran down her face as she struggled to breathe. The sensation was maddening. Worse than pain in some ways. Yoru, satisfied that Ayuri wouldn't try escaping again, finally dropped her onto the floor. Ha. Letting out a long breath, he clapped his hands softly and stared at her. Above her head, a glowing golden chest slowly emerged from thin air. Previously just a faint glimmer, now it had grown much brighter. Apparently, physical contact accelerated its progress. The more intimate or intense the interaction, the faster the bar filled. I wonder what I'll get when Sawamore's golden chest opens. Yoru muttered to himself, ignoring the girl sobbing and trembling on the floor. She could recover at her own pace. He had more pressing matters to deal with. What matters? Forcing Ayuri to admit her wrongdoings and record a video confession where she admitted to stealing Utaha's stockings and underwear. That would be his proof. He had to clear his name. That was all he wanted. Still, because of his time rewind ability, Yoru wasn't fully satisfied. If he went too far with his revenge and pushed Ayuri past her limits, she might turn on him in a self-destructive way. Even if he rewound to a time a month ago, it wouldn't change much. All he would gain was a momentary vent of anger. His only concern was that Ayuri might go completely off the rails one day and seek revenge. But he wasn't worried. If she were going to retaliate, she would have done it already. Unless... Yoru narrowed his eyes, thinking through the worst-case scenarios. Unless her golden chest held something surprising, something powerful enough to change the game. That was the only real unknown. Fortunately, with his mind-reading ability, Yoru could test her psychological limits from here on out. Having sorted his thoughts, he looked down at Ayuri, still weeping quietly on the floor. Get up. Stop crying. His voice was cold and firm. Ayuri wiped her eyes, trying to speak. But the tears came back in waves, filling her eyes with pain and fear. It felt like a second nightmare, just like before. Even though it was a little different, the outcome was the same. She knew full well what a guy like him, barging into her house with a grudge, would do to someone like her. And she knew exactly why. Because she stole Kazumidjoka Utaha's personal things and failed to return an umbrella. Ugh. Please. She didn't even try to get up anymore. In her mind, she was finished. That disgusting guy was going to do all sorts of horrible things to her. And her imagination ran wild. She was, after all, a well-known gin artist. With a mind full of those kinds of stories. She probably had more ideas than Yoru himself. This girl, who always acted high and mighty in front of others. Commanding people around, looking down on him with disgust, calling him a perverted loser fatso. Was now sobbing uncontrollably, her mouth open, drooling as her mind spiraled. It was clearly her overactive imagination getting the best of her. Stand up. Yoru showed no sympathy. I'll pay you. How much do you want? Please. Just let me go. I have a lot of money. 20 million, okay? You can have it. Just don't hurt me. Please. Cough. Ayuri's spirit was broken. She stopped resisting and started pleading. Her tear-streaked face was a mess, like a delicate flower drenched in the rain. If any of the boys who had crushes on her at school, or even the girls who looked up to her, saw her now, their worldview would shatter. Money, huh? Yoru gave a small chuckle, unmoved. 20 million was a lot. He didn't even need to read her mind to know that if he took her money and left, she'd definitely retaliate later. She was rich, powerful, and proud. Could someone like that swallow this kind of humiliation? Please. I'm begging you. That's all I have. If it's not enough, I can give you more later. Ayuri tried to choke back her sobs, her voice hoarse and raw from crying. Even speaking hurt. Yoru said nothing. The cruel glint in his eyes gradually faded. He thought he'd feel overwhelming satisfaction after getting his revenge. Adrenaline surging, body shaking with thrill. But instead, he felt nothing. Maybe it wasn't Yoru in control anymore. Maybe it was something darker. Ayuri got no reply, which only made things scarier. She looked up at the overweight man standing before her, heart pounding in terror. Right. He told her to stand up on her own. Stand up. Airi's pale arms pressed against the wall for support, trembling as she struggled to lift herself. Her legs, still wrapped in white stockings, felt numb as if anesthetized. They shook under her weight like they could give out from a light breeze. "Money can't fix everything, Sawamura Airi," Yoru said calmly, watching her in her fragile state. "Please." Airi barely managed to keep herself standing. Her lips quivered as she responded weakly. "Then tell me. Why did you steal Kasumijoka Utaha's stockings and underwear?" Yoru asked directly. "No. I didn't do it. You've got it all wrong, I swear." Airi's body twitched slightly, as if she'd just lagged in a game for a second before reconnecting. "I can't admit it. Maybe I can convince him otherwise. Who saw me? Who told him?" Yoru activated his mind-reading ability and caught every word of her internal monologue, a faint smirk curling on his lips. "Still not ready to admit anything, huh? There's been a huge misunderstanding. I really didn't do it. Think about it. Why would I steal Utaha's stockings and panties? Does that make sense? You see? If you think it through carefully, it doesn't, right?" Airi, desperate to latch onto anything that might help, tried to explain her way out. "Sawamura, I actually wanted to go easy on you." Yoru spoke in a vague, almost absent-minded tone. He hadn't expected her to be this stubborn. "You. What are you trying to do, you jerk? I'm warning you. Stay back or I'll tell my dad. He'll deal with you." Airi saw something shift in Yoru's expression and panicked again, stumbling backward. But after just a few steps, her legs gave out entirely, and she fell. Her fear, her despair. Everything inside screamed at her to run. But her body refused to move. Yoru walked over with heavy steps. "No." Airi shut her eyes tightly. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Yoru walked behind the crying girl who knelt on the floor, and crouched down. He grabbed her twin tails and used them to pull her upright. She couldn't get up on her own, so he did it for her. These pigtails. I bet half the boys at school would kill for a chance to tug on them. Yoru smirked, twisting them between his fingers. "You jerk. You creep. Gross loser. Just die already. Let me go. Get off me, you disgusting pig." Airi clenched her eyes shut as she felt Yoru's firm grip on her prized twintails, something even her childhood friend Aki never touched. And now this. Grabbing them from behind, no less. Yoru ignored her insults and started pulling her toward another room. "Let go. I swear I'll kill you." Airi thrashed and screamed, her eyes red from tears and fury, gritting her teeth as she tried to threaten him. But she was completely under his control. Her threats meaningless. "Shut it." Yoru yanked her twin tails again to keep her still. Now she had no room to escape. Airi was truly terrified. She couldn't predict what Yoru might do next. Would he really go that far? Did he not care about the consequences? "Stop making noise." Yoru, seeing she was close to breaking, loosened his grip slightly, giving her a moment to breathe. Ha. Cough. Ha. Airi coughed violently, sucking in fresh air. She hated how helpless her body felt. But Yoru's thick arms still hovered threateningly near her slender neck. "Let go of me already." Seconds later, Airi found her voice again, screaming. But in this secluded, upscale villa, who would hear her? No one. Yoru dragged Airi from the entryway into the spacious living room of the luxurious villa. The room gleamed with gold accents, furnished in elegance. Even the sofa looked expensive enough to be mistaken for a bed. They say nerves in the fingers are the most sensitive. Wonder if that's true? Yoru guided her to the couch and tossed her onto the cushions before pulling his hands back. "You disgusting creep, what do you want from me? I'll kill you." Airi yelled with tears running down her face, still trying to keep up a brave front. Still resisting, huh? Yoru pinned her down by the twintails, making sure she couldn't wriggle away. Airi was the type who cared more about appearances than anything else. And she hated being tickled. NGH. Damn you. She let out a low groan, barely squeezing words out. This was the same mouth that had shouted she'd kill Yoru just moments ago, now unable to fight back. "I guess I'll have to teach you a lesson." Yoru grabbed one of her arms and twisted it behind her back. "You. What are you doing? I'm warning you." Airi couldn't tell what Yoru had in mind, but the feeling was far from good. She tried to break free again. Yoru didn't bother responding anymore. He pushed her face first into the soft leather of the couch, holding her arms behind her. His large hands clamped tightly around her slim wrists. It was an awkward, almost comical position. But for Airi, it was nothing but degrading. "Your fingers are so delicate, Sawamura. So smooth and soft. Almost like a doll." He adjusted his footing slightly, letting her turn her head to face him. His tone grew darker. "You. Yuri strained her neck to look back and saw Yoru holding her fingers, as if examining them. Want me to pull your nails out? All 10 of them. What do you think? The inner demon in Yoru twisted his tone into a mix of menace and mockery, his fingers massaging hers with disturbing calmness. But was that even a question? In this situation, she was the helpless one. Completely at his mercy. He wasn't actually going to. They say twisted minds come from isolation and resentment. And Yoru. Yuri's panic surged. But Yoru had only been bluffing. To scare her into submission. Physical pain and humiliation, yes. But he wasn't crossing that line. He held her fingers for a moment, then suddenly squeezed and bent one hard. Pain shot through her body like lightning. Ah! Yuri screamed, thrashing, her feet kicking wildly. One of her kicks landed hard. Yoru growled. If you kick me again, I'll drag you outside and make a scene. His sharp warning froze Yuri in place. Her chest heaved, breath ragged. Quiet. Yoru wasn't done. He resumed tickling her bare feet without mercy. Yuri burst into laughter and sobs all at once, her voice shrill, her face wet with tears. She gasped for air, chest burning, her lungs aching. The torment dragged on. For more than 10 minutes. Chapter 67, please. Stop. Don't tickle me. I can't stand it. It's too much. Ah-ha-ha. Ha-ha-ha. I can't breathe. Yuri had long since cried herself dry. Her throat burned as she tried to suppress her voice. She had never felt this humiliated in her life. I'd rather you hit me. Ah. Please. Don't tickle me anymore. I'm dying of laughter. A proud young lady like Yuri, who hated being tickled more than anything, was now reduced to a mess on the floor. Her dignity was in pieces. Yoru finally seemed tired of it. He let go of the collapsed Yuri, dragging her by the twin tails to the kitchen and opening the fridge. He took out a bottle of sparkling water and drank most of it, then looked down at the dazed girl with disinterest. That was enough of a physical lesson. For now. He felt calmer, but it wasn't over. She had destroyed his reputation, and now he wanted to return the favor. What's inside this treasure chest, I wonder? He looked at the golden system chest as its progress bar filled quickly. Before closing the fridge, he glanced at Yuri again. Still lying there blankly. He grabbed another bottle of water, opened the cap, knelt down, and gently held it to her dry, blooded lips. Drink. Yoru said softly. Yuri's blank blue eyes widened. She couldn't believe it. Yoru gave a small nod. After a long hesitation, she finally took a few sips. Now, it was time to get serious. Open your mouth. Yoru ordered, not caring about her consent. He forced her mouth open and shoved in a rug. The odd taste caught her off guard. Her eyes widened. Don't want to damage those teeth. Yoru muttered. Yuri. Get up. He pulled her up by her hair and twin tails until she was standing. She didn't understand what he was doing. Until he raised his hand and placed it against her cheek. Only then did she realize. He was threatening to slap her. His large palm was nearly the size of her entire face. If he hit her with full force, it would be dangerous. Yuri flinched, trying to dodge. Yoru didn't restrain her tightly. He just held her by one twin tail. Don't move. I'll hit once. Dodge again and it'll be twice. His frown deepened, and his voice carried weight. Please. She shook her head frantically, tears forming again. But as his palm came closer, she tensed up, closed her eyes, and braced herself. Her toes curled involuntarily inside her stockings. Her whole body on edge. Yoru smiled faintly. He wasn't actually going to hit her. Don't flinch. If I hit your ear or skull, it'll be bad. Also, your family's 20 million yen. It's nothing. My family donated the same amount just to get me into such an academy. You think your 20 million makes us equal? Not even close. His cold voice pierced her ears. Before Yuri could react, his palm swept past her face with a loud smack. But he hadn't hit her. He had clapped his own hands right next to her ear to startle and humiliate her. Just to frighten the girl who had always looked down on him. Sawamura. He released her hair, letting her stand on her own. But then. She fainted. Yes, she passed out cold. Seriously? Just from that? Yoru blinked and crouched down to check her. The proud blonde heiress now lay crumpled on the cold floor, face twisted in fear. Yoru carefully pulled the cloth from her mouth. Her teeth were unharmed, but her cheek was red from where it had bumped the floor. Nothing permanent. That was good. If her parents came back and noticed real injuries, he'd be in serious trouble. Phew. Not done yet though. He glanced at the golden treasure chest hovering above her head. After a short rest, Yoru grabbed his bag and carried Yuri upstairs. He brought her into her room, locking the door behind them. Just a precaution. He didn't want her escaping if she woke up suddenly. What a huge room. It even connects to the balcony. He tossed her to the floor and turned on the light. He didn't bother snooping through her personal things. That wasn't his style. Instead, he sat down, pulled out his phone, and scrolled through news articles. Night fell. Around 8 p.m. Iriri slowly woke up. Her left cheek, swollen from the fall, throbbed painfully as she opened her eyes. "You're awake?" Yoru said casually, releasing her arms with a courteous smile. The treasure chest's progress was almost done. Something good was definitely coming. HNGH. You. As soon as she heard his voice, Iriri curled up against the wall in panic, remembering everything in an instant. She immediately checked herself. Nothing felt out of place. Her body was unharmed. She breathed a quiet sigh of relief and gently touched her swollen face. Yoru didn't pay her much attention. Instead, he opened his backpack and tossed out a thick stack of medical documents. Hospital records, lab results, x-rays, even post-surgery photos. Now, let's settle the second debt. He gestured toward the pile. All of this? Iriri shrank back in fear, glancing at him, then cautiously looked at the documents. The first page was a photo of Yoru under general anesthesia, surrounded by doctors and nurses, electrodes all over him. He'd asked for it to be taken. This is. She didn't want to keep looking, but his gaze compelled her. Lab reports, positive test results, complicated prescription lists. Over 70 pages in total. When she finished, she looked up in stunned silence. It was clear this was all related to Yoru's surgery. Hey. Yoru gave a strange laugh and peeled off his shirt, revealing his chest. He stood over Iriri like a mountain, showing her the long, curved scar across his torso. Ah. You freak. Pervert. Get away from me. Iriri shielded her eyes instinctively. Take a good look. 2 incisions. Thanks to you. Yoru's breath was heavy, and his tone deadly serious. When Iriri heard that, her first reaction was confusion. What did she do this time? But hearing that someone had undergone heart surgery twice, that it sounded serious and even life-threatening, she instinctively looked up. Look. Yoru puffed out his chest. 2 faint reddish scars across his chest were clearly visible under the light. Iriri's innocent eyes were filled with confusion. You borrowed my umbrella and never returned it. I had to walk home in a storm. It was pitch black, the rain wouldn't stop, and I couldn't see the road clearly. I slipped several times, walking through the storm barely able to breathe. When the skies completely darkened, the rain kept pouring. I had no choice but to curl up in a dirty public bathroom corner, shivering, and didn't get home until past 9. I came down with a fever, runny nose, constant coughing. My immune system weakened. When I went to find you to get the umbrella back, you called me a disgusting pig and rolled your eyes at me. Do you know why I didn't show up to school since that morning? It's because you upset me so badly. I developed high blood pressure and fell ill. My immunity collapsed. After you left, I had trouble breathing and almost passed out. In the end, I had to be rushed to the hospital. If I hadn't been, I might not have made it. I was hospitalized for over 1.5 months. 2 heart procedures. Countless medications. Endless suffering. And it was all because of you. Yoru enunciated each word slowly and clearly, glaring at Iriri as if to force her to meet his gaze. Iriri had never imagined any of this had happened. I thought the rain stopped quickly. Didn't it? She trembled, her face pale. She swore to herself she had no idea. She hadn't realized that her actions had hurt Yoru this deeply. That he ended up in the hospital, in pain, because of her. Iriri, deep down, wasn't a bad person. She was just stubborn, prideful, and prone to impulsive outbursts. But she still knew right from wrong. Yoru, reading her thoughts, heard it all. But so what? That's enough. Save your tears. I don't need them. Look up. Yoru pulled out a second-hand Sony camcorder from his backpack and pointed it at Iriri. What are you doing? She asked warily. Seeing the overweight guy holding a camera, her mind instantly conjured up scenes from stories her peers in the Jin community had created. Confess. Say clearly what you did. How you stole from Kasumijoka, Utah. I need to clear my name. Yoru let out a breath. He was starting to feel hungry. What should he have for dinner? This. Iriri collapsed to the floor, no longer caring about the pain in her body. If Yoru used that video to clear himself, she'd be ruined. But if she refused now, she'd still be ruined. I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. Yoru said, holding up 3 fingers. He immediately bent one down. I'll talk to Kasumijoka, Utah. Please, don't do this. Iriri pleaded, gritting her teeth. You hesitate even when asked to do the bare minimum to make up for what you did? Pathetic. Yoru scoffed. No. Absolutely not. I'll be finished. I'm already ruined. I don't have your family background. I'm not a cute girl. You'll be able to move somewhere new and start fresh. Yoru narrowed his eyes. I'll explain things to Kasamijoka Utaha, and I'll compensate you. Please. Ayuri started crying again. Was this still the same proud heiress from before? I'll agree. I'll let you record it as evidence so you can explain things. But you have my word, I won't spread it. After all, you're only speaking under pressure. Yaru's tone was calm. Ayuri froze, then nodded furiously. That seemed reasonable. Then let's begin. Yoru took a few steps back and lifted the camcorder, pointing it at the arrogant heiress, now huddled pitifully in a corner, bruised and disheveled. Beep. Recording started. Ayuri froze. She stared at the overweight man with a camera aimed at her, while she sat collapsed on the ground in a pitiful state. He'd barged in, overwhelmed her, forced her into this corner and now made her face the camera. Her mind, still trained in drawing those kinds of stories, spiraled out of control again. She opened her trembling lips, still stained from dried tears and blood. A few minutes later, Ayuri closed her eyes and let tears roll down her cheeks under the warm yellow glow of the lights, filled with mixed, complicated emotions. Not bad. Yoru murmured, exhaling. But it wasn't enough. He kept the camera rolling. Now, apologize. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me. Ayuri opened her eyes and, in a cracked and unsteady voice, apologized to the grotesque figure standing boldly in her once private room. Her previously clear, cute voice had turned hoarse and weak. That's your apology? Do you even realize how much pain you caused me? Yoru frowned. If he'd had more ways to restrain her, he definitely would have pushed things even further. That said, the progress bar above the golden chest had soared. It was now well over halfway. Hearing his words, Ayuri realized her apology wasn't enough. She bowed her head and apologized again. This time with sincerity. Would an apology fix anything? If so, why would the police exist? Yoru didn't care about justice. He just wanted to humiliate her. Kneel properly. Do a proper apology pose. Hands down, head low. You know the form, right? Yoru shook his head. You. Jerk. Ow. That hurts. Ayuri nearly cursed but stopped herself just in time. The kneeling posture he wanted. Known in Japan as dojutsu. Represented surrendering everything, pride, dignity, and the self, all in exchange for forgiveness. It was like a dog begging its master for a treat. And Yoru wanted her. Ayuri, a proud, elite heiress. To do that in front of him. She was humiliated, furious, and yet. She knew it wasn't unreasonable. But could a girl raised in luxury and status truly lower herself to that extent? Yoru didn't rush her. He didn't even look her way. He just stood there, wondering what he'd eat for dinner. He was genuinely hungry. Should he celebrate this victory a little? He hadn't even celebrated when he activated Kasamijoka Utaha's golden chest or got discharged from the hospital. Ayuri remained on the ground, locked in a mental struggle. Eventually, she convinced herself. If she didn't do this, she'd suffer even worse consequences. Fear overtook pride. Her tiny frame trembled as she slowly leaned forward. Both palms and forearms pressed tightly to the floor, fingers splayed, her entire body forming a straight line. She lowered her proud head at an agonizing pace. Like time slowed down. Until her forehead gently touched the back of her hands. Her face turned crimson from the shame and anger. I don't remember that pose being so half-hearted. Aren't you supposed to raise your hips a little more? Yoru felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction as he approached her with the camera, filming from every angle. He wanted to leave her no room to forget this moment. That was the only way she'd always fear him. To maintain that delicate balance between revenge and control. If only that chest gave something useful. Yoru mused to himself again. Ayuri, in that posture, had abandoned all pride. She wasn't acting arrogant anymore. Instead, she was just quietly following orders. She raised her hips slightly, even though she knew she didn't have to. It was clear Yoru was humiliating her on purpose. He grabbed my twin-tails. Forced me to make a confession on camera. Now this. And he even called me cute. Super cute, it's so late. He must have known my parents aren't in Japan tonight. Did he find out from the news? Chapter 68, he wouldn't. No, that thought suddenly struck Ayuri, and she looked up in panic. By now, Yoru had already finished recording and stepped back to where he was. Is that enough? I'll give you 20 million more. How about it? Ayuri asked in a fluster. Still not enough. Let's try a different kind of apology. Yoru tapped his chin thoughtfully. What more do you want? Ayuri's feet, clad in thick white tights, shifted nervously on the floor. Her anxiety getting the better of her. Thankfully, All he wanted was a different pose. She'd already done a doja, one of the most humiliating gestures imaginable. What could be worse? I remember you, Sawamura Ariri. Always so arrogant. You looked down on me, called me names, rolled your eyes like I was trash. How about this? Cross your arms, lift your chin like you're better than me, give me that same judgmental glare while you apologize. Eye roll and all. Yoru's suggestion left Ariri dumbfounded. What kind of twisted roleplay was this? You pervert. Disgusting freak. Creep. Go to hell. She cursed him silently, torn between shame and guilt, praying Yoru would just stop already. And yet, Ariri still did it. Blushing furiously, she crossed her arms over her chest, raised her head proudly, her twin tails bouncing behind her. With an exaggerated eye roll and a scornful glare, she looked straight at Yoru. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Sumimasen. But by the end, her voice cracked. She couldn't hold it in anymore and clamped her hands over her face, wishing the ground would just swallow her whole. This obese pig is so disgusting. One last time, and you're done. Yoru, reading her mind, understood her deeply. Her pride was nearly pathological. Face was everything to her. Hurry up and spit it out, you freak. What else do you want? Ariri stomped her foot, her face marked with a burning red slap print. Her hair was disheveled, uniform all messed up. Just one last thing. Crawl over to me like a dog. Bark a little. Then we're good. Yoru yawned casually. You bastard. Say that again? No way in hell, you're just trying to humiliate me. You're filming this to use against me, aren't you? Kama that did it. Ariri exploded. She was a half-Japanese, half-European daughter of nobility. Raised with wealth, spoiled from a young age, envied by many. And now, this. She refused to be anyone's pet. Not in the past. Not now. Never. Yoru remained calm. I'd like to say a few things in return. His mind reading still active, he heard every word of Ariri's frantic internal monologue. He chuckled bitterly. If he didn't completely crush that proud heart of hers now, she'd recover, return someday, and act just as arrogant as before. And if I don't keep some sort of proof, you'd probably try to get back at me later, wouldn't you? After saying that, he listened closely to her thoughts and feelings. They were a mess. Regret. Fear. Guilt. Resentment. Even flashes of vengeance. If you leave now, I won't hold a grudge. I'll even help clear your name. That surprised her. She stayed silent for a while, staring at him with a complicated expression. She knew how badly she'd hurt him. She wanted to make it right. But some wounds, like nails driven into wood, leave scars, even if you remove them. And what could she offer? Money. But Yoru wasn't desperate for money anymore. He didn't really care about that. And yet, he'd done horrible things to her, too. She felt the contradiction eating at her. Torn between guilt and indignation, she couldn't make a clear decision. People are instinctively biased toward themselves. Ariri had never experienced the suffering Yoru had endured. She tried to imagine it. But how could a pampered, beloved heiress possibly understand? His words reached her ears, but they didn't hit her heart. Only someone who'd been treated like garbage, shunned and mocked, could really understand. Yoru, still reading her heart, stared at the glowing chest hovering above her. If it weren't for Fujiwara, he might not be alive right now. The room went quiet. Starlight and moonlight spilled gently into the room from the balcony. Sawamura Ariri. Yoru said slowly, you seem to forget one thing. You're in my hands now. That was what he needed her to feel. He had to break her carefully maintained pride at its core. He had to strike at her deepest shame. If she didn't want the world to see this video, to have her carefully curated image destroyed, then she had no choice. Ariri bit her lip hard. The emotional pain was far worse than the physical. No way. I'm a person. I have dignity. That's not happening. Absolutely not. She shut her eyes tight, refusing to speak again. Yoru was quiet for a moment, then let out a sigh. Fair enough. Even rabbits bite when cornered. And Ariri was a lioness in silk. You don't have to worry. As long as you don't try anything, I won't release the video. But let me give you some advice. I've made backup plans. I've uploaded everything to an overseas server using an anonymous phone number and alternate IPs. The files are on a timed release. If anything happens to me, an accident, an arrest, anything, and that timer isn't manually stopped. He trailed off, letting the implications hang in the air. If Ariri dared retaliate, her theft of Kasumijoka Utaha's belongings would be exposed. The proud heiress, the icy muse, caught red-handed. She'd be ruined. Damn it. Disgusting freak. Ariri nodded through gritted teeth, seething inside. Yes, Yoru had humiliated her. crossed lines he never should have. But all she wanted now was for him to accept her apology, take the money, talk to Utaha, and delete that video. Yoru, for his part, didn't think this revenge was anywhere near enough. He still hadn't opened a golden chest hovering over her. Guess I'll toy with her a bit more. He packed up his bag, looking like he was about to leave. Hurry up and get out. Ariri pointed toward the door, desperate to be rid of him. Sawamura-san, you're so cute. I don't really want to leave. Can we be friends? He said it with mock affection. Ariri almost gagged. A creepy loser like him, asking her to be friends? Was he delusional? She hadn't realized yet that Yoru was just messing with her now. Sure. Ariri nodded just to get him to leave faster. Then I'll be going. Yoru walked to the door, unlocked it, and placed his hand on the knob. Ariri, watching him, felt a wave of relief. Tears welled up in her eyes. Creak. He gently opened the door and walked out. His figure vanished. She collapsed, unable to hold back anymore. All her emotions, fear, rage, shame, relief, came crashing down. And then, Yoru suddenly reappeared. She choked in shock, coughing violently, unable to believe it. Why the hell is he back again? Turns out, physical proximity helps open treasure chests faster. If this golden chest held anything good, Yoru was determined. He wouldn't let Ariri off so easily. Sawamura, I want to play a game with you. After re-entering the room, Yoru locked the door again. Ariri's heart skipped a beat. Her legs went weak as she stood barefoot on the floor. This disgusting loser had just barged into her home, humiliated her, and forced her to confess while recording everything. He said he would leave, but now he was back. And he'd locked the door. You just want my body. You're just here to bully me. To threaten me. Gross, you pervert, degenerate, go die. Ariri screamed and charged at him, kicking out in a desperate act of resistance. Physical attack? Or maybe magical? Trying to kill Yoru with sheer odor of her feet? The latter might have had a better chance. King's game. Like rock paper scissors. Winner gives the order. Want to play? Yoru caught her kick and casually brushed it aside. Never. I'm not playing. Ugh. Falling to the ground, Ariri sobbed. Her nerves were shattered. She couldn't take much more of this mental torture. And now Yoru wanted to gamble. Give her a 50% shot. As friends, playing games is normal, right? Yoru said. Fine. But no cheating. And nothing too crazy. I'll play. Choking back tears, Ariri had no choice but to go along with him. Alright then. Rock, paper, scissors. Yoru threw paper. Ariri, thrilled, threw scissors. She froze, stunned for a few seconds, then climbed to her feet and triumphantly declared, I win. I order you to leave my house right now. She stared warily at him, swallowing nervously. You lost, Sawamura. I give the order. Yoru pointed at himself calmly. What nonsense. You threw paper, I had scissors. I won. You're cheating. She glared, furious. No, I won. My rule is that paper wraps scissors. So paper wins. You lose. Yoru said it with a straight face, shamelessly. My command, you're my servant now. Start by giving me a foot massage. You scum. I'll kill you. You lied to me. You didn't ask about the rules. That's on you. Yoru sneered to himself as he monitored the progress bar on the golden chest. Any surprises inside? He had no intention of letting this arrogant half-blooded golden-haired bitch off easily. He'd wanted to destroy her from the very start. Leave a deep scar in her mind. A nightmare she'd carry for the rest of her life. Chapter 69, he did it. He opened a golden chest. Yoru dragged a chair over to the second-floor balcony connected to Ariri's room. He sat down in its shade, staring blankly ahead. In front of him was a large, leafy tree. One thick branch extended almost to the balcony. Maybe with a bit of agility, someone could use that tree to sneak into Ariri's private room through the balcony. Phew. Yoru blinked, exhaled slowly, and turned his gaze elsewhere. It was Saturday, nearly afternoon. Last night, he'd played the king's game with Ariri and won every round. Finally opening the golden chest. He smiled. The chest contained 2 incredible rewards. Minor luck plus magic buff, occasionally brings you good luck. But it's more than that, danger will be drawn away from you, and sometimes your wishes will come true. E.g. high fertility chances. In short, you'll gain small fortune and magical effects. Tenfold reward for effort buff, any effort you put in will return tenfold. Provided it's measurable. Yoru let the breeze wash over him. The first buff meant occasional strokes of luck and avoidance of danger. The magical part was confusing. Especially that vague line about fertility. High success rate. A bit awkward. Still, it was the second one that excited him more. Tenfold return on effort. If he exercised to lose weight, his progress would multiply. If he studied, his gains would accelerate. As long as the effort was quantifiable, he'd get results. But abstract things, like dreaming of waking up as a slim genius with mind control powers, wouldn't yield anything. One more week until finals. Then summer vacation. Can I slim down before that? Yoru looked at his chubby hands and smiled, already picturing his thinner self. The culprit behind the incident, Ariri, was caught. Once she cleared things up with Kasumijoka Utaha, he'd be free of suspicion and wouldn't have to worry about expulsion. 2 mountains lifted from his back. Still, the fat had to go. Did Yoru want to lose weight? Absolutely. And then there's Kasumijoka Utaha and Kaguya Shinomiya. Thoughts of the two who heard him surfaced again. Ariri was clearly worse, but if given the chance, he wanted revenge on them too. Kasumijoka's always alert, paranoid, and carries defense gear. I can't do to her what I did to Sawamura. She's careful. Probably wouldn't do anything even if she knew Sawamura was the thief. As for Shinomiya Kaguya, she's a rich heiress. Much more dangerous. My mind games with Sawamura ended in my win. I don't need to use my rewind ability there. After a while in the breeze, Yoru returned to Ariri's room. Ariri was awake. You bastard, disgusting pig, pervert, degenerate. Get out of my house. She sat up groggily, eyes ringed with dark circles, her swollen face still aching. Her body was sore all over from last night's exercises. She glared and hurled a pillow at him. Last night, Yoru had ordered her to do 100 push-ups and 100 squats. Thought it's rape, huh? Well shit, the second this turned to those rape revenge shit, I'm dropping it, I know, I'm leaving. He picked up the pillow, tossed it back. Ugh. Rinri. I'll kill you. Damn it. Seeing the creepy loser again made Ariri choke up and cry hoarsely. Hey. Yoru sneered and walked toward her bed. What are you doing? Stay away. Ariri panicked, tossing more pillows his way. No effect. Shut it. Cry again and I'll spank you till you can't sit straight. Yoru sat down on the soft bed. Last night, he had slept here, while Ariri lay freezing on the floor. Hiss. Hiss. Hearing that threat, Ariri fell silent. She was terrified of him now. Don't forget how you acted as my servant. I showed you exactly what I could do. If you don't want to be a public laughingstock on social media, don't get carried away and try to retaliate. You should also know. At my age, even if I commit murder, I won't get more than 15 years. If you're thinking about hiring someone to take me out, keep in mind, that timer might still be running. Yoru glared at her and activated his mind reading again. With the lucky buff protecting him from danger, he felt emboldened. But he wasn't stupid. He still needed to pressure Ariri just in case. I won't. She sniffled. No way. As soon as she heard those words, Ariri immediately shifted. From a raging golden retriever barking non-stop, to a pitiful, frightened girl. Yoru was reading her mind again. He could clearly feel the fear and dread inside her. And a deep anxiety. She was afraid he would threaten her again, humiliate her again, and force her into another round of the King's Game. The so-called King's Game allowed the winner, by any method of victory, to issue any command, which the loser couldn't refuse. Agreeing to play meant agreeing to accept the outcome. Yoru hadn't forced Ariri into it. Last night, it was Ariri herself who insisted on betting with him. But she hadn't even understood the rules properly and lost over and over again. Why won't you just leave? Get out. Get out of my house. Ugh. Sob. Ugh. Sob. Pa. Sniff. Ariri was crying again, completely unable to control herself. Do you think this would have happened if you hadn't done what you did? Yoru responded coldly, his voice filled with disdain. You ruined me. You destroyed me. Ariri screamed with all her strength, her voice tearing through the silence. And didn't you ruin me too? Yoru smiled darkly. Oh, and one more thing. Dear Sawamura Ariri. He leaned forward, placing one hand on the bed to steady himself as he brought his face closer to hers. That cute, pale-skinned, blonde girl flinched in fear instinctively, curling up and retreating into the corner of the wall, her eyes wide with terror as she stared at Yoru. Relax. I just want you to remember. Spend the rest of your life living in regret and pain. And don't even think about ending it all. If you try anything like suicide, I'll spread that video of you acting like a servant. Letting the whole world mock you. Yoru's voice was calm, but the threat was razor sharp. Get out. Just get out of my house. Go die. I hate you. I hate you so much. Ariri finally snapped, ignoring the pain in her body, lifting the blanket and throwing it at him. Her shattered spirit burned with pure hatred and fear toward Yoru. Just leave. I never want to see you again. And if you don't, if you ever dare lay a single finger on me again, I'll take you down with me. I'll kill you before I go. Yuri bit down hard on her lip, the taste of blood spreading in her mouth, washing away the leftover bitterness. She pulled herself together, forcing her emotions and her body into line. Her sapphire blue eyes met Yoru's without wavering, filled with fierce determination. I've been waiting for you to say that. Yoru stood up from the bed, thinking to himself. This match. He'd won. He had successfully taken revenge on Yuri, and now she didn't dare retaliate. That meant she'd swallowed the bitter pill quietly. The emotions revealed by his mind reading confirmed it. Well then, I'll be going. Goodbye, dear Sawamura Yuri. Yoru picked up his bag, walked to the door, and turned back to flash her a smile. Go to hell. Bastard, just die already. Yuri, furious, tried to get up to throw a pillow at him. But as soon as she moved, a wave of agony surged through her. The soreness and torn muscles from the forced workout kept her locked to the bed for the next few days. Overexercising will do that to you. Yoru gave her one last glance, then opened the door and left with his backpack. From that moment on, Yuri, the once proud, haughty little princess who always looked down on him, would never dare roll her eyes at him again. After all, she'd been humiliated in front of him. Lost all face. Now, just seeing him would be enough to make her flee in shame and fear. Yoru closed the door behind him and walked downstairs. His stomach growled. So hungry. All I had last night was some bread and milk from the fridge, and I burned through so many calories. He muttered to himself and headed into the kitchen, opening the giant double-door fridge. Yuri's parents wouldn't be back anytime soon, and Yoru felt no need to rush or worry. Let's see what we've got. He scanned the chilled section and flipped through a few containers. He grabbed a fresh peach and took a bite. Sweet juice bursting in his mouth. Then he opened the freezer. Plenty of high-quality ingredients inside. How about making a simplified seafood rice dish? He'd learned to make it while studying weight loss recipes. The dish was good, though a bit elaborate and ingredient-heavy. Back at his cramped apartment, he never had the space or equipment to try. But Yuri's mansion? Everything in it was top-tier. The kitchen alone was massive. From the fridge, he pulled out a white abalone, a bag of shrimp, a bag of mussels. Then he grabbed onions, bell peppers, and other sides. He set down his backpack and happily began to work. The seafood was all vacuum-packed and fresh. The kind of quality only rich families could afford. He boiled water, added green onions, ginger, and cooking wine to remove fishiness, and started blanching the seafood. He rinsed the rice and left it to soak. This version of the dish was freestyle. He prepped the veggies. The chopping board echoed with the steady rhythm of the knife. Meanwhile, upstairs, Yuri was still lying in bed, hands over her face, her crying finally subsiding. She thought about everything Yoru had just said to her. That bastard finally left. He even threatened me so I couldn't even die if I wanted to. Yuri lay flat on the bed, careful not to press down on her sore back. She had, in fact, considered suicide. But only as a fleeting thought. She couldn't go through with it. If she died, who would take care of Izumi Sagiri? Her beloved little sister? Yuri truly saw Sagiri as family. In her heart, the girl mattered just as much as her childhood friend Aki Tomoya. Sometimes Tomoya even made her angry. But if forced to choose, she'd pick Sagiri without hesitation. If he dares break his word and tries to hurt me again, I'll fight him with everything I have. Humphrey. Yuri's eyes were full of steel. She would never let that disgusting creep lay a hand on her again. That was what she feared most right now. The evidence of her servitude. The stolen stockings and underwear from Kasamijoka, Utah. All in his hands. There was no peace of mind with it hanging over her. Grr. Her stomach growled loudly. From yesterday afternoon until now, she hadn't eaten a single bite. Just drank a bit of water. And that disgusting creep. He'd made her squat while he sat there smugly, eating bread and drinking milk. At the end, she thought he was finally showing her mercy by offering her some milk. Turned out to be a cruel joke. After just a sip or two, he poured the rest over her face. Her hair and skin drenched in milk. Then, he splashed it on her lower body and feet. And demanded she lick it clean like a dog. Of course. She didn't do it. That bastard. Yuri cursed bitterly, gritting her teeth, forcing herself to sit up despite the pain. Overexercising had torn her muscles, her whole body was sore. She'd been run into the ground like a soldier in boot camp. Her body was done. She'd be bedridden for days. At least. Thank God. That pervert didn't go snooping around my room. She lay back again, starving but too sore to move. She needed to rest. If he'd found out I'm a gin artist, that I'm Kashiwagi-iri, I'd be totally finished. Ariri comforted herself with that small mercy. She lay there a bit longer, then tried again to get up. But the pain was so sharp, it felt like her body was falling apart. Her heart twisted with hatred and fear toward Yoru. She sank into silence again. Her mind was a tangled ball of yarn, her thoughts drifting like driftwood on a stormy sea. Swept in every direction with no control. Fear. Despair. Regret. Rage. But no more guilt. In her mind, she and Yoru were now even. Her life had truly been shattered. Not good enough for Tomoya anymore. But who would ever know what poor Ariri was thinking deep inside? Downstairs, in Ariri's kitchen, Yoru stirred the golden rice in the premium Mifan stone pot with a spatula. He was starting to realize he had a real knack for cooking. Just one attempt, and he'd managed to whip up a successful seafood rice dish. The fragrant aroma of the rice had already filled the air. It wasn't exactly authentic, but it was definitely delicious. Time to add the seafood. He first inserted mussels into the golden rice, placing them around the outer layer. Next came the large shrimp. And finally, slices of crystal clear white abalone. So pale and tender they looked like they'd melt in your mouth. Even though they weren't raw, the slices still glistened with moisture. Shame they aren't fresh enough to eat raw. Yoru thought. He was no exception to the stereotype. Japanese people loved sashimi. With the seafood added, Yoru threw in a few small chrysanthemum blossoms for garnish. He wasn't sure what variety they were, but they were almost identical in color to the abalone. Soft pink, quite rare. Seafood rice usually called for basil leaves to add fragrance and suppress fishiness. But Ariri's fridge didn't even have cilantro, only chrysanthemums. So he figured they'd work just as well. Just gotta wait for it to cook through. Yoru clapped his hands, washed up, and grabbed a handful of cherries, popping them into his mouth. There was plenty of tasty stuff in the fridge. It was early July. Summer was already in full swing. He tore open a milk white popsicle and began licking it as he waited for the seafood rice to finish cooking. Consider it a reward for a successful revenge. Time slowly ticked by. The aroma of the seafood rice drifted out from the kitchen, slipping under the gap of Ariri's bedroom door. Ow! Damn that bastard. Ariri could handle hunger, but thirst. That was unbearable. Her fingers trembled violently, veins bulging under her pale arms as she tried to push herself up from the floor. She couldn't even crawl, let alone walk. And just then, the delicious scent wafted in like a baited fishing hook, crafted by a master angler and dangled right under her nose. The smell had an almost magical pull, strong enough to make her forget everything. Even the pain in her body, and the torment in her mind. A few seconds later, she collapsed back onto the bed, sniffing the air with her tiny upturned nose, wondering if she was hallucinating. It smells so good. What is that incredible smell? She drooled involuntarily, craving food more than anything. But first, she wanted to brush her teeth thoroughly. Maybe even flush out her stomach if she could. It's just too good. Huff. Huff. Back in the kitchen, Yoru scooped half the pot into a bowl and started eating non-stop. Even though it burned his mouth, he still couldn't help taking bite after bite. It's true what they say. When you're starving, everything tastes amazing. But this seafood rice? It really was good. There wasn't even a trace of fishiness. Instead, the umami exploded, blending with the aroma of the rice, abalone, and chrysanthemum. Completely addictive. Especially when he chewed the rice thoroughly. The floral fragrance of the chrysanthemum bloomed in his chest, clean and refreshing. The abalone slices, while not fresh from the ocean, were still incredible. Top-tier ingredients. Rare and precious. So good. So good. Yoru kept eating, occasionally digging out a mussel or two. Within minutes, half the pot was gone. He hadn't used much oil. The seafood was high protein, perfect for a healthy Mediterranean-style diet. The only cheat? That popsicle. But popsicles are cold. Cold means 0 calories. Basically counts as 0. Yoru comforted himself as he washed his hands clean. Besides, he had that tenfold reward for effort buff skill anyway. Losing weight would be a breeze. One popsicle wasn't going to ruin him. Discipline and control were necessary, sure. But this didn't count. It's fine. If I just work hard this summer, I can lose weight. And once I'm slimmer, maybe I won't look that bad. He flicked the water from his hands and prepared to leave. At this point, he still didn't know what kind of transformation awaited him after a focused summer of training and dieting. He picked up his backpack, glanced at Ariri's bedroom door. Then hesitated. He set the bag back down. Went back into the kitchen and scooped some seafood rice, picked up a bottle of milk, and headed upstairs again. Cautious as ever, Yoru still wanted to test the waters. to see how Airi would react to a small act of goodwill. After all, she couldn't get out of bed right now. And that was technically his fault. Don't misunderstand. It wasn't like she exercised regularly. He'd made her do 100 push-ups and 100 squats during her training last night. No wonder she couldn't move. So good. I must be hallucinating. Gurgle gurgle. Airi was sore all over, parched and starving. She even suspected she was suffering from rhabdomyolysis. She'd been put through boot camp all night. Fetching water, taking orders, running back and forth. Normally pampered, used to being served hand and foot. Airi was utterly spoiled. Being ordered around by that disgusting fatty like a maid? If word got out, everyone at school would think that perverted creep had lost his mind. Gross. Disgusting. No one would ever believe that the cute and elegant Sawamura Airi. Just 5 more minutes. Then I'll crawl to get water. Her throat felt like it had been scraped by knives. Too dry to speak. The smell of seafood rice still hovered at her nose, refusing to dissipate. Thump thump thump. Footsteps echoed up the stairs. Airi, in terrible condition, was slow to react. But when she realized what it meant, her eyes shot open in panic. Yoru hadn't left. What does he want now? Her eyes widened in alarm, face pale with fear. When the doorknob turned, her breathing hitched. Suddenly, she wanted to fight back. That disgusting creep. What more did he want? Sawamura? Yoru pushed the door open confidently. The scent of seafood rice burst through like a ravenous tiger. You disgusting pervert. If you even touch me again, I swear I'll kill you. I don't care if I lose face. I'll take you down with me. Airi screamed, pointing at him furiously. I made seafood rice. Brought milk too. Yoru didn't step inside. He activated his mind reading and set the rice and milk at the door. Airi sniffed the air like a puppy, stunned by how good it smelled. She looked at the disgusting fatty in disbelief. What? Is he trying to butter me up? Then threaten me again? Make me give in and keep this twisted relationship going? I'm not eating that. Disgusting. Dump it. Get out of my house. Airi forced her parched throat to shout, pointing right at Yoru's nose. I just wanted to warn you. Not to act recklessly. I'm scared too, you know. After all, I'm no match for the noble, high-born Sawamura Airi. Yoru gripped the doorknob again. And pulled the door shut. Of course. Airi was so cute. In the future, if there was a chance. And he still had leverage. Chapter 70. After speaking, Yoru closed the door. You. Why are you closing the door? What are you doing? Airi, immersed in fear, was suddenly jolted awake. She thought Yoru was shutting her inside again. No. No. I don't want this. I'm going to die. Oh. Sorry, my bad. Yoru, not paying attention for a moment, had opened the door to Airi's room again. He glanced at the seafood rice and the bottle of milk left on the floor, then stepped back out. Click. The door shut. Airi lay motionless on the bed, her lips pressed together tightly. Her big, teary eyes stared blankly at the door. She didn't make a sound for a long time. Outside the room, Yoru didn't leave immediately. He waited. When no sound came from inside, he hesitated. Maybe it was best not to provoke Airi further. With that thought, he slowly went downstairs, picked up his school bag, and quietly left Airi's house. At the entrance, he put on his shoes, glanced around the spacious and luxurious villa, and even took a moment to neatly line up Airi's shoes before walking out. The door could be opened from inside without a fingerprint. Just unlock it and walk away. Bright sunlight struck Yoru's face. Airi's mouth is pretty foul, but she's still cute. Her figure isn't bad either. She might look small, but she's got a surprisingly strong will inside. Really makes you wonder who managed to tame that arrogant little bitch one day. Hee hee hee. Yoru laughed out loud, clearly in an excellent mood. In all his life, he had never felt so happy. He passed through the villa's garden. The blooming flowers gave off a gentle fragrance. Eku. 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 Yoru sniffled, sneezing 3 times in a row. Rubbing his nose, he took a deep breath and walked into the little flower garden. Glancing around casually, he spotted a small pink and white herb he'd used as a substitute for basil and cilantro in the seafood rice earlier. It was tucked into a corner of the garden. Yoru crouched down, picked one, and held it to his nose. The scent was faint but refreshing. Smells nice. Muttering to himself, Yoru turned and left Airi's home. He walked straight through the front gate, stepped onto the wide sidewalk outside. It was still early. Very early. Yoru didn't even know what to do with himself. His mind wandered. He just wanted to walk without thinking. He put aside the thoughts of revenge, the hatred toward Kaguya Shinomiya and Utaha Kasamijoka, and strolled aimlessly. He didn't know the streets and didn't care where he ended up. He breathed in the fresh scent of the flower he held. Though he didn't know it. The flowers in Ariri's garden were all rare and expensive. Sawamura Sayuri, Ariri's mother and a diplomat's wife, had no need to work and spent her free time tending to her garden with care and expertise. The flower Yoru just picked had been carefully bred and nurtured by her for 10 months. It was extremely rare. And now, it had been plucked and sniffed by a greasy otaku. Even worse. He used it in cooking. Not long after Yoru left, Ariri painfully crawled out of bed, dragging herself to the door in a prone position. Ignoring the aching pain all over her body, she pressed her elbow against the wall and twisted the door handle. That disgusting freak must be gone, right? Nervous, frightened, Ariri peeked her head out just slightly. Her golden hair was a tangled mess. The house was silent. He was gone. Yoru had left. Ariri slumped to the floor in disbelief, covering her face. She wanted to cry out, but her tears had already dried up, and her eyes still burned. The aroma of seafood rice continued to drift from the edge of the pot's lid, teasing her nose and stirring her stomach. Like hell, I'm eating food made by that disgusting, perverted pig. Trying to win me over? Drop dead. Ariri finally snapped. She tried to kick the seafood rice away. But the moment she moved, pain surged through her. Cough. Cough. Her throat, dry as sandpaper, burned as she suddenly started coughing violently, her face turning red. With no other choice, she grabbed the bottle of milk from the floor. After all, it came from her own fridge. She twisted off the cap and gulped it down desperately. In mere seconds, she had drunk over half of the 1-liter bottle. But she drank too fast. Her throat couldn't handle it. She choked. Milk spurted back out through her nose, covering her cute little face in white. Cough. Cough. Damn it. Damn bastard. Holding her stomach, Ariri felt the nausea rising and couldn't stop herself from dry heaving. A long time passed before she finally wiped her face clean and froze in place again. Even she didn't know what she wanted to do now. A gentle breeze blew through the balcony, carrying a faint floral scent. Ariri caught a whiff and turned her head. Only to see the pot of seafood rice. To eat. Or not to eat? She couldn't even walk properly. She had been exhausted the entire day and hadn't eaten a single bite. The fridge probably didn't have anything ready to eat either. The seafood rice in front of her looked irresistible. Golden and rich in aroma. Even someone who wasn't hungry would have drooled at the sight. After a long silence, Ariri slowly crawled over and removed the pot lid. The fragrance hit her hard, overwhelming her senses. She couldn't resist anymore. She picked up the spoon and began shoveling it into her mouth. That proud, arrogant girl, who used to call Yoru a disgusting freak, was now stuffing her cheeks full with his cooking. And it was delicious. Incredibly so. The sound of chewing echoed through the room. This was what Yoru had wanted. You could understand a person's thoughts through their behavior and expressions. Like an interrogator or a therapist. Same principle. The fact that Ariri was willing to eat the rice meant that, from now on, as long as Yoru didn't cross the line again, she wouldn't dare go against him. She swallowed a huge spoonful, then unexpectedly chuckled to herself and took another. But her tears were falling, soaking the floor. She knew it deep down. She didn't deserve someone like Tomoya anymore. Her life had been shattered. She would live in this shadow forever. Where am I? Yoru had no idea how long he'd been walking when he finally stopped and looked around. The sun was beginning to set. There weren't any tall office buildings around, so he knew this wasn't one of the wealthy districts like Minato or Chiyoda. Guess I'll head home. His legs ached. He pulled out his phone and opened the map app. Let's see. Nearest station. He zoomed in and moved the map around. Edagawa Ward. He confirmed his location and started heading toward the station. As he passed a corner store, he stepped inside and browsed a bit. Eventually, he bought a can of black coffee. After paying, he stepped outside and stood at the door, taking big gulps. Once finished, he casually tossed the empty can toward the garbage bin outside. It flew through the air in a nice arc but bounced off the rim and landed on the ground. It bounced once again. Right at that moment, a little girl came running out from a blind spot in Yoru's field of view. The can hit her arm. It wasn't serious. In fact, she didn't even seem to notice the impact. Otherwise, she would have stopped and looked. Sorry, little girl. My bad. I didn't get it in the bin. I really apologize. Yoru quickly approached and apologized to what looked like an elementary schooler who had just started first grade. Even if she wasn't hurt and the can didn't hit her hard, it still felt right to apologize. The little girl continued sobbing as if she hadn't heard Yoru's words. Yoru didn't dare get too close. He was fully aware of how he looked. An unkempt, overweight guy with long hair. If he got any nearer and a passerby saw, they'd definitely misunderstand. It'd be impossible to explain. Hey, don't cry, okay? What's wrong? Is there anything I can help you with? Yoru anxiously glanced around while trying to calm the little girl. He wasn't familiar with this neighborhood. It was his first time here. He'd just wandered aimlessly for so long, taking breaks now and then, and somehow ended up here. I lost my stuff. And I don't know how to get back. Ugh. 1. On-chan. The little girl looked up at Yoru and cried even harder. She had lost something, had an argument with her sister, and ran away. Her home was somewhere nearby. Not too far. But she didn't clearly remember the way back. She had a vague sense of direction, but she kept running in circles and ended up lost. Hey, it's okay, don't cry. I can call the police for you. They'll help take you home. Yoru took out his phone and tried to comfort her. After speaking gently, he dialed the police. As the call connected, Yoru lightly tapped the back of his phone to make some sound. Sniff. Sniff. The little girl wiped her eyes and looked up at Yoru. Thank you. Mister. Yoru almost choked on his own breath. You're probably a first grader, and I'm a high school student. Did you just call me mister? After explaining the situation to the operator, Yoru hung up and took a closer look at the girl. She actually seemed kind of familiar. It's all good now. Someone will be here soon to take you home. Yoru kept his distance, not daring to approach. Okay. The girl nodded obediently. Yoru didn't leave. He stayed nearby, and after about 10 minutes, a community patrol officer from the police station rode up on a bicycle and stopped in front of the convenience store. I'm the one who called. Yoru stepped up and spoke. The officer gave Yoru a once-over before hurrying over to check on the girl. Sigh. No matter where you go, this world judges by appearances. Yoru sighed quietly. He still had a bit over a month left in summer vacation. Hopefully, he could slim down by then. That gold chest gave him a tenfold reward return on effort bonus. It definitely wasn't just fluff. I really want to see what I'd look like thinner. There aren't even any childhood photos for reference. Mom's beautiful, so hopefully I won't turn out too ugly. Yoru stood quietly to the side, letting the officer do his job, all the while daydreaming. His only wish. That after a lifetime of being overweight, he wouldn't end up looking worse after slimming down. He wasn't hoping to suddenly look like some handsome manga protagonist or anything. That would just be delusional. Just then, the officer's radio crackled with several voices, followed by a soft and anxious girl's voice. On-chan. Sniff. I'm over here. The little girl suddenly perked up. Looks like her sister called the police too. They got connected. Yoru let out a breath of relief. He watched the girl for a moment, then stayed put. A few minutes later, another patrol officer arrived with the girl's older sister. That's her? Yoru narrowed his eyes slightly as he recognized her. It was Akino's Hanami. He first thought of his fat cat, San-san, and then recalled Tokaizaki Kurami, Hanami's close friend. Back at Shuchin Academy, near the vending machines. While lining up, Yoru had overheard that beautiful girl with peach-colored hair and a shockingly generous figure calling her bestie San-san. Same name as his cat. It all came back now. Thank you so much. You're Kitakami-san from school, right? Ikino's, dressed casually in a loose shirt, relaxed visibly once she saw her little sister safe. Then she turned to Yoru and thanked him politely. She clearly recognized him. The guy with a bad reputation at school. The one rumored to have stolen Kasumijoka-senpai's stockings and panties. You're probably thinking right now, he's that disgusting guy from school, the thief, right? Miss Ikino's? Yoru caught the flicker in Ikino's expression and replied flatly. He didn't need mind-reading powers. It was written all over her face. Even if he had psychic abilities, Yoru wasn't the type to abuse them. Ah. Ikino's eyes widened in shock, her lips parting, chest slightly jolting. Forget it, I'm leaving. Yoru didn't look particularly upset. He was just waiting for Ariri to go confess to Kasumijoka Utaha. Why yes, I'm sorry. Truly, I'm very sorry about those thoughts in my head. I couldn't help it. I apologize. Ikino's quickly stepped in front of him, bowing in apology. But please don't misunderstand. I know my sister ran off on her own. It had nothing to do with you. You actually helped her, and I'm grateful. The busty girl in front of him hurried to explain herself, her voice sincere, her eyes darting about with some embarrassment. All right. Yoru said calmly. Thanks again. I'm Akino's Hanami, from Class 2E. Akino's smiled gently and introduced herself. Was this good luck? A rare bit of fortune? He'd met one of the cutest, curviest girls at school? Could a beautiful girl actually End up liking him? Nah. Too unrealistic. Yaru left, quietly roasting himself in his head. Hanami watched him go and muttered to herself, come to think of it, wasn't it here that Sansan's pudding got ruined? A loose dog scared her away and she ran off. We looked everywhere and never found her. By the time Yoru got home, it was nearly dark. He'd eaten a big meal of seafood rice at Ariri's house, so he wasn't hungry now. He picked up Sansan and placed her on his lap, petting her from head to tail. Want me to give you a bath later? Yoru said, holding the cat up. She was so round. Humans got judged for being chubby. Ugly, creepy, gross. But when a cat's chubby, it's just adorable. Meow meow. Meow. Sansan batted her paw gently at Yoru. Then, sensing what was coming, she started to squirm unhappily. Don't fuss. You haven't had a bath in forever. You only look clean. You need flea treatment too. Yaru held her firmly, preventing escape. Despite the protesting meows, Yaru carried her into the bathroom, ignoring her will entirely. After a thorough wash, towel dry, and a blow dry using a rib comb, Sansan sulked off to her favorite corner of the living room couch. Sigh. Cleaning up the bath supplies, Yoru returned to his room and opened a study notebook made specially for him by Yukino. It was a math notebook. His weakest subject. He read carefully, studying hard. And without even noticing, for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel tired at all. On the contrary, he was genuinely excited. The math that had once given him so much headache had now become a breeze, thanks to the tenfold effort return buff. It was like he'd turned into a math genius. His learning efficiency had skyrocketed, and everything just clicked. Math wasn't something you had to memorize endlessly. As long as you remembered formulas and solution methods, you could easily extrapolate and solve similar problems. Yoru exhaled with delight. This miraculous buff was even more powerful than he'd imagined. And it wasn't just math. Even if he started practicing soccer now, the world's #1 sport, which required years of cultivated ball sense and technique, he might rapidly improve under the effect of this buff. A year of effort is equal to 10 years. Yoru turned off the desk lamp and leaned back in his chair. He wasn't thinking about picking up soccer. What he was focused on was losing weight over the summer. If he trained for a month, the return would be equivalent to 10 months. That should be enough time to slim down, right? If all went well, he could completely transform during this summer break, returning to school with a new face and finally shaking off that stolen panties reputation. Final exams were coming up next Saturday and Sunday. So at most, he had 5 days. After the exams, they'd get a short break, followed by a commendation ceremony for top students at Shuchen Academy. Then summer vacation would officially begin. Starting from today, he had about 2 months to lose weight. Getting up from the chair, Yoru saw that it was already 9 p.m. He had studied for 2 hours straight. Usually, after just 30 minutes, his brain would feel like dried-out fruit pulp. Completely drained. But with his energy high, Yoru put on his sneakers, unrolled his yoga mat, and began his aerobic workout. If I slim down a little more, I can start running stairs. That'd boost efficiency. Holding a plank on the mat, Yoru thought optimistically. He kept at it for a full hour. That was enough for today. It was Sunday tomorrow, no need to stay up late. He put away the yoga mat and went to the shower, rinsing off with cold water to soothe his aching muscles. Meanwhile, in a luxurious mansion, Ariri had just finished the seafood rice Yoru had made for her. She'd forced herself to drink the nauseating milk, taken some painkillers, and finally recovered after lying down since the afternoon. Gurgle. Holding her small belly, Ariri swallowed another pill and stared silently out at the balcony. The house was huge, but she was all alone. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. She had already cried too much. After completely destroying the packaging, leaving no trace, Ariri fought off the chill in her body and sank into a cold bath. So cold. I can't take it. Back in his own place, Yaru quickly toweled off the cold water and slipped into the small bathtub. His skin, chilled and then exposed to warmth, erupted in goosebumps. Yoru grimaced. Damn it. After finishing a not-so-comfortable bath, he ate a raw cucumber and a tomato as a light midnight snack, then lay down in bed. He hesitated, but ultimately didn't open line. Everyone was probably busy preparing for finals. If he messaged someone and distracted them while they were studying, that would be bad. So Yoru just scrolled through news instead. A notification popped up a while later. It was from the police. Yoru assumed it was about Hanami Akino's incident from earlier that day, but it wasn't. It was about a lost and found report from the time he went to Akihabara with Megumi. They had picked up a lost bag with a transit card and a fancy sketchbook. At first, he thought it was just a beautifully illustrated notebook. But it turned out to be a Jun artist's sketchbook. That guy must be loaded. Who uses luxury sketchbooks for that kind of stuff? Yoru muttered to himself. Didn't he come looking for it? Maybe he figured it wasn't worth much, and thought no one would turn it in, so he didn't bother checking with any local stations? Whatever, I'll pick it up when I have time. After reading a few more articles, Yoru switched to a shopping site. Since the day Fujiwara took him to the hospital, he'd only thanked her once. He hadn't seen her again. But then again, he hadn't been back at school for very long. What should I get her as thanks? And then there's Hiratsuka-sensei, and Yukino. The semester's ending soon. He aimlessly browsed while the algorithm pushed him products he might like. But honestly, he didn't know what Fujiwara, Hiratsuka, or Yukino would like at all. Sigh. He couldn't just give San-san to Yukino Shita as a gift, could he? Definitely not. Hiratsuka-sensei was apparently going on arranged dates, but he didn't know any high-quality guys to introduce her to. Wait. Guys. Right. If he remembered correctly, Hiratsuka-sensei drove a red Aston Martin DB11. She taught at the elite Shuchin Academy. She had high standards, high social status. She was gorgeous, kind, and had a good heart. Probably just too picky. That's why she hadn't gotten married yet. As for Fujiwara, Yoru's head hurt even more. He really didn't know what to do. They were all women. His biggest weakness. And none of them lacked money. This was seriously difficult. Since he couldn't come up with anything for now, he gave up and put his phone away. No point staying up. It was Sunday. Yoru got up later than usual, made breakfast, filled San-san's food and water, then unrolled his yoga mat again for his daily aerobic session. After sweating for a full hour, more than usual, he took a cold shower. Shirtless, he stood in front of the mirror, checking himself out a little before heading to breakfast. Knock knock. Who is it? Surprised, Yoru went to open the door. Morning. Ha. Gabriel stood at his door in pajamas, heavy dark circles under her eyes as she greeted him. She didn't notice. Or didn't care. That Yoru was shirtless. Morning, Gabriel. Yoru nodded, instinctively covering his chest. She didn't care, but he sure did. It was kind of embarrassing. I ran out of food at home. Mind if I crash your breakfast? Gabriel asked, a little sheepishly. Come in, I'll make something. Yoru sighed and stepped aside. You stayed up late playing games again, didn't you? Gabriel, the finals are coming up. Nope. I didn't stay up. Gabriel replied flatly and walked in, skillfully changing into house slippers. I don't believe you. Finals are right around the corner. Aren't you nervous? Yoru went to the living room and quickly put on a shirt. Not really. Gabriel shook her head softly. She wasn't joking. After all, she was an angel. Why would she worry about human exams? What actually bothered her more was that she hadn't finished her Genshin Impact dailies. And she wasn't lying. Last night, she had slept a whole hour and a half. I'll make your breakfast. Just wait a bit. Yoru didn't mind cooking. In fact, he'd grown to enjoy the process. And the results? San-san, who had been dozing, climbed onto Gabriel's lap. So boring. Soon, Yoru brought out breakfast. For himself, a glass of milk with oats, an apple, and a boiled egg. Gabriel's was a little more luxurious. But not by much. Thanks for the food. Ah. Gabriel put San-san down and started eating like a typical gaming addict. Come to think of it, I am kind of like Gabriel's guardian, huh? Yoru chewed his oats and swallowed. Should he try helping Gabriel get over her gaming addiction? After breakfast, Gabriel didn't leave. She sprawled on the couch with San-san in her arms, eyes closed, resting. Chapter 71, Yoru didn't pay her any attention and went back to the bedroom to read for an hour. When the time was about right, he changed into a new outfit and came out. Yoru, are you heading out? Gabriel opened her eyes and looked at him. Getting a haircut. Yoru adjusted his uncomfortable hair. It was too loose and annoying. He made a scissor motion with his fingers. Mind waiting a bit? Vin will come by soon. Let's go together. Gabriel suggested. Hearing Gabriel mention her, Yoru remembered who Vignette was and nodded. He squeezed onto the small couch. Sansan immediately jumped into his lap, so he started playing with her using a cat teaser wand. Only about 10 minutes later. Soon listen, sorry for the intrusion. Vignette took off her shoes at the door and curiously walked in. Gabriel had already messaged her in advance. After saying hello, there was no rush to leave, so Vignette sat down to chat for a while. San-san, being so cute, made it impossible for anyone to walk away. She ended up being passed into Vignette's hands. Speaking of which, I invited Satania earlier, but she didn't agree to come. Vignette gently stroked San-san as she chatted with Gabriel. Ah, Satania? Gabriel yawned indifferently. Always making a fuss in class, openly declaring herself a demon from the demon world, constantly shouting that she'd become a great demon and make puny humans submit. The funny thing was, no one in class took her seriously. Everyone just thought of Satania as a cute, delusional foreign transfer student. Not a single person suspected her true identity. Gabriel was very close with Vignette, but her relationship with Satania was neither good nor bad. More like oddly neutral. Satania really leaves me speechless. Gabriel muttered, twitching her mouth. Unforgivable. My most loyal friend from hell, then. You've betrayed me, betrayed our demon realm, and now you're friends with an angel. The demon Satania, whom Gabriel was just talking about, was now downstairs near the apartment, hiding behind a utility pole. She muttered to herself while staring up at Yoru's place, her face full of tragic grief. The next second, her expression flipped like a switch and collapsed into pitiful disappointment. _C, Then. Satania actually really wanted to go shopping with Vignette too. At that moment, taking advantage of Satania's distraction, Yoru stepped out of the apartment first and walked onto the balcony corridor. Gabriel came out right after, then turned around to go back inside and change clothes. Vignette was the last. See you, San-san. Waving goodbye to the cat. That chubby guy? When Satania looked again, she was surprised to spot Yoru. I remember seeing him with Gabriel a long time ago. They seemed to be really close. Satania stood frozen for a few seconds, trying to recall details. Gabriel quickly changed and came out in a loose white t-shirt and shorts. After a few words, they left the apartment. Gabriel, walking at the end, glanced back at the utility pole Satania had just been hiding behind. Nothing there. Did she imagine it? Gabriel scratched her messy blonde hair. Mere angel, don't think you can spot me. Satania stepped out from the shadows after they left, secretly following Yoru and the others, her gaze bouncing back and forth between Yoru and Gabriel. The three didn't go to a train station but instead chose to walk. Vignette and Gabriel weren't interested in shopping malls or tall city attractions, not even department stores. They chose a market street about a 30-minute walk from the apartment. It was full of local flavor. The road was wide and newly paved, not run down or cramped like one might expect. Everything looked neat, bright, and upscale. Shops lined both sides. Come on in. Spend over 3,000 yen for a spin at the prize wheel. Grand prize, a 7-day Okinawa trip from a travel agency. Summer is here. Fresh fruit. Fresh watermelons from Kumamoto. Flown in just last week. July eel. July eel. Fresh live eels, now on discount. Yoru was carrying a bag of fruit when he stopped in front of a fish stall. Gabriel and Vignette naturally stopped with him. Hey there, young man, check out these eels. Really plump and lively. What do you think? Here, I'll give you gloves. Want to try grabbing one to test how lively they are? The fish stall owner, wearing a white towel around his head, enthusiastically promoted his goods to Yoru. Let me see. Yoru stepped forward and peered into the big tub filled with squirming live eels. Packed together, their bodies secreted a white, slippery slime. Japanese people love eating eel and use all kinds of methods to prepare it. Grilled kabayaki, charcoal roasted, tempura, and so on. There's also a seasonal tradition of eating eel in July. Specifically, on July 25th. It's even got a name, Doyo no Ashi no Hai, Midsummer Day of the Ox. Even chains like Yoshinoya, which don't usually serve eel, will release a limited eel bowl that day. Every year, Yaru's mom, Kidakami Megumi, would make it for him. Ew, that's gross. Curious, Gabriel stepped forward and leaned over like Yoru. But after seeing the mass of black, worm-like bodies writhing together, her expression turned grim and she immediately stepped back. Scary, huh? Seeing Gabriel's reaction, Vignette couldn't help taking a peek too. Only to quickly retreat as well. Ah, you two must be foreigners, right? Not used to eel? Don't worry. It's totally safe, not a snake, not poisonous, and super tasty however you cook it. The uncle now turned his sales pitch to Gabriel and Vin. Are you really going to eat that, Yoru? Gabriel no longer used classmate formal titles when addressing him and asked curiously. To her, that thing was just gross. Yeah, you've never tried it, right? Eel is great this time of year. We can buy some and cook it for lunch. Yoru nodded and looked at the vendor. Alright, young man, how many would you like? The vendor grinned so hard his eyes nearly disappeared. The fish had price tags attached. He might give a discount to regulars or for bulk purchases. Yoru bought 10 eels and rounded down the total. The vendor helped clean them and added some crushed ice to keep them fresh. I'll cook them for lunch. Yoru weighed the bag in his hand. After the three left, the fish vendor stood frozen for a moment. No way. That chubby guy was out shopping with two cute foreign beauties. So jealous. The vendor shed tears of envy, then quickly went back to serving customers. What are they looking at? Pretending to browse trinkets, Satania secretly spied from the shadows with a confused look. And Gabriel seemed surprisingly close to that chubby guy. An evil thought gradually formed in Satania's mind. Just thinking about it made her adrenaline spike and her tailbone tingle. Hee hee. Gabriel. Muttering her name under her breath, Satania stealthily followed after them. She passed the fish stall, where the vendor greeted her warmly, so she glanced inside. Ah! What is that? So creepy. Satania was startled and kept trembling as if she had narrowly escaped death. When she finally came to her senses, she realized she had lost track of them. They wandered the market street for a good hour and a half, buying everything they needed. The three of them carried bags of groceries as they took shelter inside a hair salon while Yoru got his hair cut. Gabriel and Vignette waited at the entrance, enjoying the air conditioning. Summer had arrived, and midday in Tokyo was scorching hot. Satania, who had lost track of them, wandered the streets with a frustrated and dejected expression. Ah! She opened her mouth and took a bite of a tricolor dango, chewing as she walked. Eh? Isn't that Satania? Hands in her pockets, Gabriel spotted the distinctive red hair in the crowd. I told her we'd be coming here, but... Did she find us on her own? Vignette stood up and started walking towards Satania. Satania. Gabriel raised her voice and called out clearly. Who's calling me? Did I hear wrong? No, wait. Gabriel. Satania instantly snapped out of her slump and jumped up, shouting Gabriel's name. Vignette stopped and waved, signaling her to come over. Should I go or not? If I go and Gabriel finds out I was secretly following them. How disgraceful for a proud demon like me. If I don't. Satania hesitated, staring at the hair salon, then gave a small hum and walked over. Hey, what a coincidence, Gabriel, Vin. Standing in front of the hair salon, Satania greeted Gabriel with her usual arrogance. Don't tell me you've been following us the whole time? Gabriel didn't change her expression, simply replying in a flat tone. Huh? Satania froze, eyes wide, looking completely dumbfounded. Then she realized she had overreacted. Leaning in until her face was almost touching Gabriel's, she whispered with a dark tone, Angel, what are you being smug about? Do you think I, the great Satania, would need to follow you around? Eh ha 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 ha. With a dramatic spin, Satania twirled once and then began laughing at Gabriel. That was her act on the surface. Deep down, she was drenched in cold sweat and didn't dare stick around. Gabriel. Vignette. Hee hee, I won't waste time talking with you two. I'm leaving. Cutting off her laughter, Satania glanced inside at Yoru getting his hair cut, then awkwardly ran off. She okay? Gabriel tilted her head adorably. She's fine, it's just Satania. Vin was a bit speechless, but not worried. A few minutes later, Yoru came out with his haircut finished. He was still a bit chubby, but he looked much more refreshed. Let's go. Yoru said as they headed back to the apartment on foot. Back home, Yoru consulted a recipe and aimed to make the eel as light as possible. It didn't need too much oil or salt. Just some black pepper and chili for seasoning. Vin helped Yoru in the kitchen. Chop the green onions into sections, mix in some chicken bouillon, oyster sauce, and sesame paste. Go easy on the oil. Sesame paste has healthy fats. It's fine to eat a little. Okay, got it. Vin was a bit flustered but didn't make any mistakes. 30 minutes later. Braised eel with chicken sauce and green onions, pan-fried eel, and stir-fried celery with shrimp were placed on the makeshift dining table by Vignette. Seeing the neatly cut eel segments coated in rich amber sauce and bursting with umami, Gabriel began drooling uncontrollably. So that disgusting-looking eel could smell this good? Even better than stir-fried beans. San, there's some for you too. Yoru had set aside a small portion of fresh eel just for San. After feeding it to her, he sat back at the table. Let's eat. Yoru looked at the two beautiful girls beside him. Gabriel didn't hesitate. She picked up a piece of eel with her chopsticks and was about to put it into her bowl. But ended up placing it into Yoru's bowl instead. My chopsticks are clean. I haven't eaten yet. Gabriel mumbled. Alright, I'll go and first then. No need to hold back. Yoru didn't mind at all. As for the taste. He'd already sneaked a bite in the kitchen. It was amazing. Definitely good enough to open a shop. Bring in some old grandpa to cook it, and it'd have the vibe of a legendary eel master. So good. Vignette followed, picking up her chopsticks. The moment she placed the eel in her mouth, her face lit up in bliss, eyes closed with joy as she bit down. She slowly savored the flavor. It looked gross, but it's seriously delicious. Vignette thought to herself. Gabriel couldn't wait any longer and reached out with her own chopsticks. Chapter 72, Monday. Only 4 days left until final exams. Yoru got up earlier than usual today. Without any hesitation, he rolled out of bed, put on his slippers, and went to wash up. Wonder if Gabriel's awake yet. She's been getting more and more addicted to gaming. No going back now. Gargle gargle. Yoru spit out the toothpaste and decided to check on Gabriel soon. After washing up, he went to the kitchen to make his own breakfast. He boiled an egg, reheated some bread bought from the market using the microwave, poured a cup of milk, and added a few low-sugar fruits. He didn't eat yet. Back in his room, he pulled out a yoga mat from under the bed and began his daily half-hour of fasted cardio. After working up a full sweat, he took off his clothes, wiped himself down with a towel, and changed into the Shuchin Academy uniform. He gave some cat food and water to the still sleeping Sanson, then went to wake up Gabriel. The door isn't even closed. Isn't she afraid of thieves? With his hand on the knob, Yoru turned it while calling out to her. Gabriel, I'm coming in. Getting no reply, he cautiously stepped inside. There were 2 garbage bags piled up at the entrance, filled with snacks, frozen food, and instant noodles. The soup and liquid hadn't even been drained properly. He walked straight in. In the messy living room, he found Gabriel fast asleep on the sofa in a red tracksuit. She must have stayed up gaming again. Final exams are coming. Does she not care? Without watching his step, Yoru accidentally stepped on a pair of blue and white striped worn panties. Clothes were scattered all over the living room floor, along with leftover snack bags and empty drink bottles. Yoru twitched at the corner of his mouth. Was this really the same Gabriel he met when they first became neighbors? Maybe it was time to help her quit her internet addiction. Gabriel, Gabriel. Yoru squatted down in front of her and looked at her sleeping face. Still as cute as ever. Except, there were still crumbs from potato chips on the corner of her pale lips. Gabriel was sound asleep, showing no signs of waking up. Yoru had no choice but to nudge her a few times, finally splashing a bit of water on her adorable face. What are you doing? It's still early. Gabriel mumbled, groggily opened her eyes to see it was Yoru, then turned over. Get up. Time for school. Final exams are coming. You're not even a little anxious? Yoru figured sleeping on the sofa all night would definitely make her catch a cold. Don't. Wanna. Humans. Are a pain. Gabriel covered her ears and muttered to herself. You're right. Humans really do judge based on appearances, and relationships are complicated. Yoru sighed, resting his hands on his hips. Was he really supposed to force Gabriel to go to school? Then make sure to go to school. I'll get you a blanket. Gabriel was completely uncooperative. Yoru went into her room, grabbed a blanket, and covered her with it before heading home. After breakfast, he gave a quick pat to the still sleeping Sansan, grabbed his backpack, and left. Wonder if Sawamura will come to school today? Better stay away from her, don't want to set her off. Muttering to himself, a small smile slowly crept onto Yoru's lips. He seemed to recall something that gave him a sense of relief and satisfaction. The only regret was not getting any compensation from Mariri. But since her most prized collection was already in his possession, that was good enough. From now on, they'd walk their own separate paths. No way Ariri would turn into one of those dumb girls from manga, completely unable to live without him after getting humiliated by him, right? With a smug grin Yoru couldn't hide, he made his way to the station. This time of day was peak commuting time for students. But when Yoru stepped into the train car, there wasn't a single student from Shuchin Academy in sight. Shuchin didn't just have a high school. There were elementary, middle, and even university departments. Even the road from the commercial district to Shuchin's gates was unusually empty. Except for a few jocks dressed like Shaolin monks. Probably in the middle of exam prep. Yoru guessed. He walked into the school, thinking he should probably start working hard too. Even though once Ariri went to clear things up with Kasumijoka Utaha, he wouldn't need to worry about being expelled. Still, if he could put in a little effort and get a big return, who wouldn't want that? As Yoru walked to class, he noticed there weren't many people moving around campus. He passed by the neighboring classroom, slowing down to peek at Ariri's seat. She wasn't there. Probably still not well enough to attend. Yoru, who liked using the back door, entered the classroom. It was quiet. Even Yumeko, who usually hung out with a crowd, was quietly reading a book. The end-of-term test atmosphere was in full swing. At that moment, a long, modified black luxury car smoothly drove down the commercial street. The driver sat up front, while the rear windows were covered with curtains. Not only did it offer privacy, but it was soundproof too. Perfect for doing things. Hi Asaka, final exams are just around the corner. Once it's over, I won't get to see the president anymore. It's going to be a long time before I can talk to him again. What should I do? Ah. Kaguya, always poised and elegant in public, now hugged her head in frustration, whining to her personal maid Hayasaka. Hayasaka, 1/4 Irish, with blonde hair and blue eyes, was a pale-skinned mixed-race girl. Her family had once lost a power struggle with the Shinomiya family. After their defeat, the Shinomiya family, recognizing their superior bloodline, took them in and forced them into lifelong service. In other words, they were beaten, then enslaved. Kaguya-sama just needs to be a little bolder. Hayasaka sat calmly across from her, expressionless. Easy to say. Different when you actually have to do it. Kaguya shook her head and gave her a look that said, "You're not helping at all." Kaguya-sama might not see President Shire again for the entire summer vacation. He's busy with work too. Even if he has free time, you might not be able to get a hold of him. Hayasaka added the blow with a straight face. Hayasaka, if you're not going to help, can you not make it worse? Kaguya turned to look out the window at the fast-receding cityscape. Summer is here. Nature awakens. Teen boys and girls unleash hot hormones in the blazing season. President Shire again is very capable. Looks-wise, well, he's decent. Very popular with girls. Hayasaka spoke softly. What are you trying to say, Hayasaka? Kaguya snapped her head back with a sharp tone and dark expression. I'm just reminding you, Kaguya-sama. After a long summer, what if? When you come back, President Shire again already has a beautiful girlfriend? Hayasaka remained composed. And no way. Her reaction was unexpected. She had complete faith in Shire again. The man she liked. There's still plenty of time. No need to rush. Kaguya consoled herself internally. What if something unexpected happens? Hayasaka tried to provoke her again, but inside she sighed. Seriously. How hard is it to just say I like you? There won't be any surprises. The president won't fall for anyone else. And I definitely won't fall for anyone else either, so it'll be fine. You're overthinking it, Hayasaka. Kaguya formed an X with her hands. By the way, Hayasaka, do you have someone you like? She casually asked while fixing her uniform. Hayasaka no. I've never liked anyone. She answered flatly, then after a slight pause and barely noticeable lip press, added, maybe. I never will. Just being Kaguya-sama's personal maid was exhausting enough. Romantic love was something Hayasaka had never even thought about. Craving it only made her feel worse. Kaguya, head down, didn't notice the faint sorrow and fatigue in her maid's eyes. After straightening her uniform, she looked up and asked, so, Hayasaka, what do you think of the president? Think of him? Absolutely nothing. Hayasaka really wondered how her lady had fallen for Shire again. He's great. Really? She finally answered plainly. She barely had any interaction with him. What else could she say? Might as well give a safe answer. You're not going to fall for him, right? Kaguya's brilliant ruby-like eyes widened. Nope. Hayasaka gave a firm reply. Time for her to get off the car. Hey, Hayasaka, what if one day we both fall for the same guy? What would you do? Kaguya suddenly mused aloud. Then I'll absolutely fight you for him. I'll turn into your worst enemy. I'll do everything to defeat you and make you regret it. Hayasaka's lips twitched slightly as she played along with Kaguya's random thought. The car began to slow. Since she played a gyro at school and didn't know Kaguya well, Hayasaka had to get off somewhere discreet to avoid being seen. Hayasaka. Kaguya didn't care and sighed. Hayasaka opened the door expressionlessly, checked her surroundings, and stepped out safely. Click. Vroom. The car engine roared and gradually pulled away. As if I could ever fall for someone else, Kaguya-sama. Unless the one you like took care of you so completely, like an owner pampering their beloved puppy. Maybe then I'd finally let go. And also. Hayasaka watched the car fade out of sight. She was the mole planted by Shinomiya Oko from a young age. She had to constantly report Kaguya's status and monitor her. If Kaguya found out, she'd probably hate her forever. Hayasaka let the cool morning breeze blow through her golden hair. After the morning homeroom ended, a brief and precious break arrived. Yoru took out his phone in boredom, browsed the news a bit, then looked out the window. Ah, I'm so tired, His deskmate, Yumiko, stood up and stretched with a long yawn. Even this queen of normie girls was seriously studying for the finals. Her golden hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Mira's a trendy gyro and a girl too. She'd probably know what kind of gift girls appreciate most as thanks, right? Yoru turned to glance at the tall, pretty gyro beside him. He thought about it for a second. Then gave up. Chapter 73, Yoru and Yumiko weren't exactly close. In fact, There'd been a small misunderstanding that left things sour between them. So, he felt a little awkward about asking her anything. Besides, whether or not Yumiko would even acknowledge him was still a big question. But maybe I can ask Uegahama. She's easy to talk to and would probably help me out. Yoru turned his head and looked at Uegahama's distinctive dumpling-shaped hair bun. If all else failed, there was always Megumi. Since everyone was focused on studying for finals, he decided not to disturb them for now. Yoru went to the restroom. Ayuri's seat was still empty, and there was no sign of her bag. When he returned, the bell for the first class had already rung. It was classic literature with Hiratsuka-sensei. By this point in the semester, they'd finished all the lessons. It was all review now. Lots of review. What kind of gift should I get to thank Hiratsuka-sensei? Yoru spent the whole class worrying over that until the bell rang again. He watched the sultry, mature beauty of a teacher walk out before a light bulb went off in his head. Hiratsuka smokes. Maybe a couple of cartons of cigarettes? He shot that idea down almost immediately. No way that'd be appropriate. Next class was World History with Garasamifo. The golden treasure chest above her head hadn't moved at all. The last 2 golden chests had given him some incredible rewards. Ones that had practically changed his life. How do I unlock it? Yoru was both excited and frustrated. At lunch, he went out as usual and came back with a bottle of black coffee. Even black coffee was selling out during finals week. After school, Yoru headed straight to the service club as always. He bumped into Yukino downstairs, so they went up together. He opened the door. Afternoon sunlight streamed into the clubroom. Let's take a short break, then we'll start. The finals are coming up. Let's see how your grades are doing. Yukino was as cold as ever. Even with Uegahama around, she didn't act any more familiar. Yoru nodded slightly and looked at the cold beauty in front of him, once again wondering what kind of gift would be suitable to thank her for all her help. Even though Yukino claimed she was only helping because Hiratsuka asked her to, and said she didn't need any thanks. Yoru still felt he needed to show some appreciation. At least a small gift to express his feelings. A thank you gift. Where's Uegahama-san today? After a moment, Yoru curiously glanced outside. Even Yumiko had been studying hard today. Surely she wouldn't drag Uegahama out to hang after school? She had something to do at home and went to help out. Yukino answered flatly, picking up a piece of chalk and giving him a questioning glance. I wanted to ask her something. Yoru scratched his head awkwardly as he replied. Aren't you two in the same class? You had plenty of chances today. Why didn't you ask her then? Yukino seemed genuinely puzzled. There are too many people in class. Everyone's watching. I couldn't find a chance to talk to her alone. I'm already known as that disgusting fat creep. If I suddenly walked up to her with everyone watching, I could brush it off. But what if it made Uegahama-san uncomfortable? That's why I didn't ask. Yoru let out a quiet sigh. Yukino fell silent for a moment, then suddenly covered her mouth and let out a soft laugh, revealing a row of clean, white teeth. I didn't expect the peeping creep to be so considerate. You're pretty thoughtful. Then she followed up with her usual sarcastic tone. Let's start the lesson. Isn't this all so you can give her a gift? Yoru only said the first half aloud. He kept the rest to himself. The lesson began as usual. Yukino was teaching Japanese. Yoru focused intently. Even though he was alone with the school's famously cold beauty, he didn't let his mind wander. Thanks to his 10 times effort boost, his learning speed and retention were shockingly high. So much so that even Yukino was a little surprised. It was almost unbelievable. After 30 minutes of one-on-one tutoring, it was over. Yukino took a sip of water and stared at Yoru. Did something finally click for you? Your efficiency's gone way up. Maybe my brain got rebooted after that hospital stay. Yoru gave a vague answer and tapped his head. Well, you should keep it up and keep working hard. Yukino was quietly amazed. Was this kind of learning speed even possible? Reciting a long passage once and then repeating it word for word without error. Still, she didn't dwell on it. With a little club time left, she let Yoru review on his own while she caught up on her own work. At 4:30, give or take, club activities ended. Yoru was the first to leave the service club and walked out of Shuchin alone. Why is he coming to school again? At the gate, Candice Orada, walking with the soccer club, looked dejected. He'd just been rejected by Aoyama Nanami. Called gross, hated, told to get lost. He was told he wasn't even as good as that disgusting fat guy. His only consolation was thinking, there's no way Aoyama would ever fall for someone like Kitakami. Yoru didn't walk fast. He wondered whether Gabriel had come to school today or just overslept again. Or maybe she didn't show up at all. Lost in thought, he arrived at the shopping street and passed a shoe store. Yoru turned his head and slowly backed up. The giant floor-to-ceiling window revealed everything inside clearly. If Mira's here, then Yuagahama's probably here too. Through the glass, Yoru spotted Yumiko sitting and trying on shoes, her back turned toward him. With a graceful flick of her slim finger, she removed her small leather shoe and sat down. Her feet, clad in black cotton socks, and her flawless, beautiful legs slid smoothly into a pair of off-white leather knee-high boots. She zipped them up. So those boots do have zippers. I always thought girls just shove their feet in. Yoru muttered, continuing to scan for Yuagahama. How do they look? Yumiko's figure was already tall and her legs perfectly shaped. The boots made her look even more striking and three-dimensional. Huh? They're really cute. They suit you, Yumiko. Yuagahama peeked halfway out and then disappeared again. Yoru lit up inside. He wanted to go in and talk to Yuagahama, but as he lifted his foot, he hesitated. Should I really go in? Still wavering, Yoru sniffled. Then someone suddenly tapped him on the shoulder from behind. Hello. What are you doing here, Kitakami-kun? Ebina had come back from buying drinks and found Yoru lurking outside, staring at Yumiko through the window. He hadn't even noticed her standing behind him. Yoru was clearly startled. No doubt about it. He turned around and saw Ebina, who was close friends with Yumiko and Yuagahama. She held a bag of drinks and was looking at him with curiosity and a hint of amusement. Sorry, did I scare you? You were staring at Yumiko, weren't you? Ebina smiled. And no, I was looking for Yuagahama-san. Yoru quickly waved his hands. What's going on out here? Huh? Hina and him? Yumiko was a bit surprised to see Yoru outside. And even more surprised to see her best friend Hina chatting with him. You're here for Yua, right? You're in the same club, aren't you? Ebina adjusted her old-fashioned red-framed glasses. Even though she was a bright and beautiful girl, the glasses gave her a surprisingly plain look. Quite the contrast. Something like that. Yoru didn't go into details about the tutoring sessions. A club that helps others, huh? Yuagahama didn't come today. Ebina noted this in her mind and gestured for Yoru to come into the shop with her. Huh? What's going on? Yumiko called out as she saw Ebina bring Yoru into the store. The main business on this shopping street relied heavily on Shuchin Academy students. Right now, everyone was busy studying for finals. Once exams were over and summer break began, foot traffic would drop significantly. Shops usually started running promotions during this time. Yumiko was in a good mood. There were fewer people, so trying on shoes was easier and more relaxed. Naturally, the commotion drew Yuagahama's attention. Someone's here for you. Ebina walked into the store and called out. Don't be so loud. Yoru muttered, glancing uneasily at his desk mate Yumiko. Who is it? Huh? It's Kitakami-kun. Did something happen? Yuagahama emerged wearing a black short-sleeved shirt, her face a little smudged with dirt. Oh, no, nothing serious. I had something I wanted to ask you. Needed your advice on something. Yoru forced a shy smile. He was too nervous to notice that both Yumiko and Ebina were wearing their Shuchin uniforms. Yuagahama had even swapped her shoes out for sneakers. Go ahead, ask away. Yuagahama patted her own cheeks. Yoru didn't answer right away. He glanced at the three beautiful girls in the store watching him, which made him stiffen up even more. Well, if I wanted to give a gift to a girl around my age, what kind of gift would be good? The store went silent. After a short pause, Yoru finally spoke again under Yuagahama's expectant gaze. Silence. Still silence. Wait. Are you trying to go after a girl? Yumiko burst out laughing, breaking the tension. She held her stomach, laughing uncontrollably. Someone liking Yoru? No way, right? You'd have to be blind to fall for this disgusting fat creep. Although he did seem a little thinner than at the beginning of the semester. Maybe he was trying to lose weight? Even if he lost some, it still wouldn't be possible, right? Yoru shot her a look and said, it's not like that. It's just to show my thanks. Oh, sorry, I'm the kind of person who just blurts out whatever comes to mind. Yumiko quickly reined in her laughter, then exchanged a glance with her two close friends, Yu and Hina. Is the person also from our school? Yuagahama asked. Yoru nodded. Gift-giving was an art. Especially for someone like Yoru. Just his identity as a non-otaku could easily lead to misunderstandings. Not to mention the identity of the person receiving the gift. People who attended Shuchin came from elite backgrounds. Well, Yuagahama started thinking. Yukino popped into her head. Was Yoru trying to thank Yukainon? It wouldn't be right to ask directly. How about food? Everyone eats, right? Ebina pointed her index finger upward in front of her chest, then appeared at Yoru's side and made the suggestion. Food? Yoru frowned slightly and began to think. Food is a no-go. This is meant to show appreciation, right? It doesn't fit. Yumiko chimed in with interest, waving her hand as she rejected Ebina's suggestion outright. Yoru was a bit surprised at her response. She was actually helping him brainstorm? Still, her rejection made a lot of sense, so he nodded. Giving food to Yukino. Or to Hiratsuka-sensei, or Fujiwara-chika. Gift sets of snacks? Fancy chocolates? None of it felt right. No matter what kind of food, it just didn't seem suitable. What about accessories? Like a necklace? A bracelet? Uegahama chimed in, though she wasn't exactly an expert. That's probably not a good idea. Giving accessories like necklaces or bracelets usually implies romance. Either that or you're pursuing them. It doesn't convey gratitude. Unless it's something they already really like and you just happen to pick the right one. Yumiko cut in before Yoru could say it himself. There was another problem: Fujiwara-chika, Hiratsuka Shizuka, Yukino Shita Yukino. These were all people from wealthy families. Far richer than Yoru's family. Would they be unable to afford their own accessories? And Yoru didn't have much money. Would he buy something cheap? That wouldn't do at all. Realizing that Uegahama and Ebina weren't helping much, Yoru turned his attention to Yumiko. She didn't reject him. Instead, she pressed a finger to her chin and began pacing, thinking it over seriously. Yoru wasn't in a rush. Just give them something they like. Ebina interjected again. Yoru glanced at her and gave a small shake of his head. What about a set of high-end skincare products? Essence, toner, cream. Just don't go with lipstick. Yumiko suddenly spoke, turning to Yoru. Think about it. Every girl loves to look good. Giving skincare products is totally fine. They'll definitely use them. It might not be the absolute best option, but it's never a bad one. It's a safe, universally accepted choice. Unless it's a little kid or an elderly lady, it'll work. Just make sure it's a full set. One single product feels cheap. And it has to be from a luxury or premium brand. La Mer, Girl in Orchide Imperiale, Helena Rubinstein's Replasty. Those kinds. The beautiful blonde gal counted them off one by one, naming the brands with practiced familiarity. After listing them, she sat down and let out a sigh. That's a great idea. Thank you, Mira-san. Yoru expressed his gratitude, feeling that it really made sense. Except, those kinds of skincare products would destroy his wallet. He couldn't afford them at all. He never accepted the 10 million yen from Marieri. Yoru still relied on the allowance his parents gave him for daily expenses. A single jar of La Mer cream cost 40,000 yen even at duty-free prices. 3 jars. That's 120,000 yen. A full set, with serum and toner included, would cost at least 200,000 yen. 200,000 yen. That's equivalent to the post-tax monthly salary of a newly graduated college student.